for council members to review and discuss important issues, projects, and future council meeting agenda items. It's a work-study session only and allows the council to hear input from city staff. No action will be taken at this workshop, and there will not be an opportunity for public comment. This meeting is streaming live on Glendale's Facebook and YouTube pages and the city's cable television station, Glendale Channel 11. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Glendale City Council workshop session of November 28th, 2023. The meeting is called to order. I will now conduct an attendance roll call. Please signify by saying present. Councilmember Aldama. Councilmember Yu. Councilmember Malnar.
Present.
Councilmember Tomachoff. Councilmember Turner. And I am here. I'd like to note that the Mayor Wires has an excused absence, as does Councilmember Tomachoff, and if she can join us later in this meeting, she will. Ms. Bauer, would you introduce item number 1, please?
Proposed 2024 legislative agenda.
Good morning, Vice Mayor, members of the council. First of all, thank you for adjusting your schedules today to start this meeting a half hour early. We have, as you know, a number of items on the workshop agenda today, so we do appreciate your extra time that you've set aside. We'll get to do the first item right now, and this will be led by Ryan Lee, our Intergovernmental Programs Director.
Thank you, Vice Mayor and members of the council. We come before you, as we do each year, at the beginning of a new legislative session to seek council adoption of the city's legislative agenda. The legislative agenda defines the city's priorities for the upcoming session and will guide the city's lobbying efforts at the Arizona State Legislature. Each of you have a copy of the proposed agenda in your council packets. Consistent with previous council direction, we again recommend prioritizing the state legislative agenda to a few key issues to allow staff to have a stronger, more consistent message on the items of greatest importance. We will continue to update the council through our weekly updates that we send out on Fridays, as well as providing our departments updates as well. We appreciate our departments and all of their hard work. Oftentimes we require our departments to provide feedback to very lengthy bills with just a short turnaround, so we appreciate their efforts as we really focus on two issues: protecting local control and fighting against unfunded mandates. Haley Berry from my staff and I would like to provide you with a quick overview of the session and some major themes we anticipate before we walk through the legislative agenda.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor and council members. The 56th Legislature's second regular session will convene on January 8th. Let's quickly review the makeup of the legislature for the state of Arizona and Glendale. The legislature continues to have a Republican majority in both chambers. Representative Ben Toma serves as the Speaker of the House, and Senator Warren Peterson serves as President of the Senate. There have been several changes for the Democrats since the last session. Since our last presentation, Governor Hobbs has hired a new Chief of Staff, Chad Campbell. Democrats have also elected new leadership in both chambers. Representative Lupe Contreras serves as the Minority Leader, and in the Senate, Senator Mitzi Epstein serves as the Minority Leader. Although session has not yet begun, as of yesterday, 17 bills have been already introduced, and we expect to see well over 1,000 bills introduced over the next few weeks. To provide some perspective, last year there were over 1,750 bills that were introduced.
We've provided a slide showing the notable leadership positions for those who represent Glendale and the West Valley. And this is important because we are able to demonstrate really the influence that the West Valley has gained at the Arizona Legislature. As you can see, our Speaker of the House and our Minority Leader both represent Glendale. And so that's given us great access to be able to share some of our concerns and help shape policy where there's compromise or where we are in favor of certain legislation.
Each year, we strive to meet with each of our 18 delegation members prior to the start of the legislative session. In these meetings, we take time to discuss potential upcoming legislation, areas of interest for the legislators, and any legislation that we as a city will introduce. We appreciate the relationships that we have built and the openness shown by our legislators to meet with us in return. All of these efforts are the reasons why we have been successful in advocating for Glendale's priorities. Together as the council and staff, we have all made it a priority to strengthen relationships and to keep dialogue open with our members, even when we may not always agree.
So we'll quickly go through some of the themes that we anticipate as we've met with members of our delegation. As you are aware, and we've seen in the news, there's a significant budget shortfall that's the Arizona legislature is experiencing right now. The budget that was approved in this last session currently is experiencing about a $1 billion shortfall. So they're going to take that budget deficit into the next session with the requirement to balance the budget and anticipate what next year's budget's going to look like. So there's going to be several discussions on where the money's going to be found. We have heard from the Democratic caucus that ESAs is a major concern. The expense of ESAs, the Republicans are saying that there is no interest in cutting that. So that's another example of where we're going to have to see some compromise. We've experienced sweeps in the past. We've experienced a HERF sweep. We hope that will not come back, but we anticipate that it might. And we're going to be fighting to make sure that our councils have the funds that they need to be able to take care of our infrastructure here locally. We know that affordable housing is going to come up again. Last year there was legislation introduced. It was one of the bigger fights in the session. The league, working with stakeholders like Glendale, put forth a proposal that was going to require cities to really move towards more affordable housing. Ultimately, that proposal was rejected, so it wasn't the cities holding that up. There was disagreements within the legislature on how to move forward, so we anticipate legislation will come back. Same with land use planning. So there's the affordable housing piece, and then there's how we zone our land and any restrictions that we may put on developers, and that's going to be an attack on cities and towns as well. And then homelessness. We know homelessness is rising, and so we anticipate that there's going to be some mandates on cities to address homelessness. Want to talk a little bit about some of the legislation that Glendale's working on through the direction of the City Council. So the firefighter cancer legislation is one that we are continuing to work with our stakeholders on. We're working with our fire department and our human resources department to understand the language that we need to put forward so that reoccurring cancers are not the sole reason for workers' comp denial. So we want to make sure that we're taking care of that. A couple other pieces of legislation that are not on this PowerPoint, and I apologize for that, is sober living homes. So we know sober living homes is a big issue for all cities and towns, and the West Valley especially has taken an interest in working collaboratively on really cleaning up the codes and making sure that we have the authority to properly manage these sober living homes in our community. So there's some legislation that we're working on and working on setting up some updates for each of you as well. Another item that the Intergovernmental Programs is working on, there's two pieces of legislation related to public safety. The first one, we were approached by a legislator who wants to increase the criminal penalties for individuals who harm or kill a service animal that's assigned to the police department. And so we've been providing some information to that legislator on what the appropriate punishment could be. We also need to keep in mind what our governor and legislature will tolerate as well. And then finally, there is an interest in trying to eliminate the requirement for police departments to transport patients from facilities, one facility to another, who have been recommended for psychiatric evaluation. Currently, our police officers do that. And what that's doing is one, it's taking our officers off the streets where they're needed, and two, there's a perception that it's criminalizing individuals who haven't done anything wrong, who haven't necessarily broken the law, but when our police department interacts with them, there's certain procedures that need to take place. So there's some bipartisan interest to see if we can find an alternative method for transporting these patients. Excuse me. And then, so we'll finish off with the legislative priorities in our legislative agenda. So there's a couple items that we focus on throughout the session, and we'll go through those. It's fiscal sustainability, economic development, land use planning, military preservation, neighborhoods, public safety, transportation, and water. Over the last couple of sessions, we have had very important bills in all of these areas that we focused on to ensure that we protect local control, we protect our budgets, and we fight against unfunded mandates.
If residents are interested in keeping track of the bills that we have identified as neighborhood bills, they are encouraged to sign up for our Legislative Link program. This is a unique program that enables residents to stay informed about what's going on at the legislature and what neighborhood bills have been introduced. Participants receive weekly email updates and tracking sheets that provide them with information on where bills are in the process and what the next step is and the process will be. This program is a valuable resource for residents who want to stay engaged in the legislative process. For more information or to sign up, residents can contact our department or at 623-930-2813 or visit our website. This year, we will continue posting the weekly Legislative Link emails on our website. I would also encourage everyone to visit our department website. We provide a tremendous amount of information on everything from how shared revenue works, how to find and contact their legislators and congressional representatives, maps showing district boundaries, and several other interesting and valuable links to resources. We also pride ourselves with our transparency with the direct links to our lobbying reports that we are required to file with the Secretary of State's office.
So Vice Mayor Clark, members of the City Council, we are here again to seek your consensus on the adoption of the 2024 state legislative agenda. And with that, we stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Please note that Councilmember Aldama has joined the workshop meeting. Council members, questions. Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just one, and to me it seems small, but who knows what it'll look like in the world of the legislature. But apparently under state law, we have 20 days after an election to canvass the results of that election. And what that quite often means is we have to hold a special meeting to do that, whereas if we had 21 days to canvass the results of the election, we could do it at one of our regularly scheduled meetings. So if it would be possible to see about just getting us one more day, and that's because elections are typically held on the first Tuesday. We meet on the second, results wouldn't be available, or the third, and then that's 21 days later. So one more day could probably make life easier for us and our staff and other cities that also meet on second and fourth Tuesdays. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Melnar? Councilmember Yu? Councilmember Aldama?
None, Vice Mayor.
Okay. Is there consensus to incorporate Councilmember Turner's suggestion to increase the time for councils to ratify canvass of votes by 1 day? Is there consensus?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
There is. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you.
Ms. Bauer, would you move on to the next item, please?
Consideration of Indigenous Peoples Day and Juneteenth as official city holidays.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, here to provide staff report on agenda item number 2 is Jim Brown, our Director of Human Resources and Risk Management.
Thank you. Thank you, City Manager Phelps, and good afternoon, Vice Mayor, members of the council. I'm here today with Ms. Vicki Moss, who is our Assistant Human Resources Director, and today we're going to be presenting to the council for your consideration and then further direction, consideration of Indigenous Peoples Day and Juneteenth as official holidays. All right. So as far as the scope of work is concerned for today, I'm sorry, there we go. The scope of work today, what we're going to be covering with the council is first, an overview of the official holidays that are recognized by our comparable cities. We'll talk a little bit about comparable cities' vacation and leave accruals and what those are in compared to the ones that we have. And then also an estimated cost, what it would cost to add additional holidays to the city. And as we go through the presentation, when we talk about comparable cities, we're referring to 10 cities that we typically benchmark against, and those cities are Goodyear, Gilbert, Chandler, Peoria, Scottsdale, Tempe, Phoenix, Avondale, Surprise, and Mesa. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Moss.
Good afternoon, Vice.
Could you adjust your microphone, please?
Still hold on. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. We found that all of the comparable cities observed, at minimum, the 9 following holidays.
Yeah.
Yep, we're good there. New Year's Day, MLK, Junior's Day, President's Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, and Christmas Day. City offices are closed on these days. All eligible employees, unless required to maintain critical city services and or considered essential workers, in other words, PD, fire, 911 operators, water plant operators, are relieved from duty and paid for their full shift. Other holidays officially recognized by comparable cities: Christmas Eve is observed by Glendale and Phoenix, half day, and Mesa, 1 full day. Juneteenth is observed by 9 out of the 11 comparable cities, with the exception of Glendale and Gilbert. Although Juneteenth is not officially observed by Glendale through office closure, our Inclusion Network hosts an annual event that includes a special guest speaker and provides education and inspiration. Lunch is also provided. Veterans Day is observed by 10 out of the 11 comparable cities, except for Gilbert. Cesar Chavez Day and Indigenous Peoples Day is observed by Phoenix and Tempe.
And if I could, I'll just step in here real quick and just remind the council, we do work very closely with our Inclusion Network and Glendale Hispanic Network to throughout the year to celebrate different holidays, different events. I know for the last 2 years, as Vicki had mentioned, we've had a Juneteenth celebration. In both of those celebrations, we've had over 180 employees show up, and it's more focused around education and celebration. And we want our employees to walk away from those events with a better understanding of what those holidays are about, with what we're recognizing with inclusion, those types of things. And we do the same with our Hispanic Heritage Months, with our Glendale Hispanic Network. So we do continue to, throughout the year, whether we officially celebrate it as a holiday or not, we want to make sure that we're educating and we're celebrating, and we're focusing on the differences of our staff and of our community.
Vice Mayor,
Yes.
thank you, if I may. I feel that what the city does with regard to the events that you're talking about and the awareness programs that we have are well attended, but the organization itself as a whole doesn't attend. I've been to many of those, and the attendance was great. 50, 60 people. That's great. I think we have 1,300 employees, something like that. When you adopt a meaningful holiday as part of an organization, that's celebrating the inclusivity of a city, but you do it holistically as an organization. Now, we should continue to, and we should try to increase the attendance, and I know that our staff does, but not everybody has the time and the ability to be released for that. So I just wanted to note that it's important for the organization as a whole to celebrate a meaningful holiday as a whole, not just, the events don't suffice 100%, but I am not knocking them. They are great. We should continue. Just wanted to make that note. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Vice Mayor.
you, Councilmember Aldama. Any questions right now? All right, you can continue, please.
Holiday leave hours are floating holidays provided by comparable cities. Floating holidays are hours provided to an eligible employee that can be used anytime during the year with approval. This is to allow the employee additional time off to celebrate a holiday that the city does not officially observe. Glendale provides 12 floating holidays. Although these hours can be used anytime during the year, the original intent of these hours were to cover the half day for Christmas Eve, 4 hours, and the remaining 8 to cover Columbus Day, which was previously observed by Glendale. Gilbert sits at the top with 24 floating holidays. As we look at the holidays that are currently observed, which are the closures, and the floating holiday hours combined, Phoenix leads with 14 days, followed by Tempe at 13 days. Glendale, along with Gilbert, Avondale, Chandler, Goodyear, Peoria, Scottsdale, and Surprise, all have a total of 12 days. And Mesa is sitting with 11. The comparable cities' maximum vacation leave accruals, Surprise sets at 248. And when we looked at the maximum vacation accruals of our comparable cities, we only looked at vacation. We didn't look at any other leave time. And we looked at the maximum amount of vacation that a regular full-time status, 40-hour per week employee, not including fire suppression or MOU-related benefits, could earn based on the longest seniority. And Glendale was right in the middle at 198 hours. That's equivalent to about 4.8 hours annually. Mr. Brown will conclude this presentation with the estimated cost of adding an official city holiday, and we will be available to answer any questions.
Right. So, Mayor and Council, we went through and did calculations in terms of holiday leave payout. And on average, what it would cost the city to add a holiday would be $756,300 in holiday leave payout. And then what we looked at is on any pay period that has a holiday in it, were there any anomalies or any changes in terms of overtime, anything of that nature? And what we found was, on average, throughout the course of a year, a pay period that has a holiday in it, we incur about $134,000 of additional overtime during that pay period. And that might be because employee may take the day before or the day after, and then we've got to go out and staff that, and sometimes that incurs overtime. So those are just averages that we have. So the estimated cost of adding an official holiday to the city would be approximately $890,462. And essentially that concludes our presentation of the scope of work that we discussed. And certainly we'd be open to any questions, and what we're looking for certainly from the council would be direction in terms of whether you'd like to see this move forward to a voting session. And if you would, whether it's Juneteenth or Indigenous Peoples Day or both, move forward to a voting session.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Councilmember Aldama.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Brown, I thank the two of you for your presentation. I appreciate you taking time to put all this together. I will say that just my opinion only, that the information you brought to us is really important. It gives us a good thought process. However, it really sets the stage, in my opinion, for the optics of outsiders looking in that maybe what they're showing us is enough. Like, we do enough. We give these holidays already, but really almost all public entities give almost the same. And it also sets the stage for, with the vacation days, that we do enough. Not saying that that's what you guys planned out to establish today, but it just looks like that to me. I believe that, so a question before I go on, question for you is, the $890,000, is that take into account that the floating day, it wouldn't cost us additional $890? Every employee already has a floating day, and I realize that not every employee uses that floating day in the same fiscal year, so the impact is much less. It's not as great. Now, if you take all those floating holidays, it should come up to the 890. We're already paying that. We're just not paying it at one time. Am I correct so far?
Mayor and Council, the floating holiday is 8 hours, and there would be a cost if we closed the city down and shut down services for an additional day. So there would be a cost to that. I think we talked about the overtime being around $134,000, something like that. And also within our HR policy currently, we are affording employees currently 8 hours of floating holiday for the Columbus Day, and then the additional 4 for Christmas Eve. And essentially what we would be doing is taking away that flexibility and then applying it to a particular day. So if they took that 8 hours, let's say that they received of a floating holiday from Columbus Day, and they use it for another religious holiday that they celebrate, we'd be taking that away and moving that over to either Indigenous Peoples Day or June 19th. So that's something that could be considered a takeaway, and that's something I'd have to defer to the attorney's office, whether that's something we could do or would take a risk in doing. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think it's something we should look at, and you're just using the words, and I know you don't mean it that way, but we're not taking away anything. We're substituting it with something else. So then, it is not $890,000. Yes, I agree with you. There is a cost to closing down an organization, any organization. And just for those who are watching, even in Christmas, any holiday, I believe, public safety is still working. Okay? Fortunately, because it keeps our cities safe. Some sanitation departments are still working. There are departments that will never close down, even in any holiday. So if we were to adopt one of these days or any of these days for a holiday, we wouldn't be shutting down the city to the extent that maybe you explained. It's not, we can't shut down. Unfortunately, there are employees that just can't take the day off. Maybe a floating holiday works for those employees. If you can't be off, you can use another day. I just don't believe that it's $890,000 when you extrapolate the floating days or the floating holidays. If you were to combine those, that's a large sum of funding or dollars. So I don't believe it's $890. If we were to say today, take one of these holidays and adopt it as in place of the floating holiday, it wouldn't be $890,000. I'm just not saying that. There's already cost built in for a day off for employees. And you just said 8, maybe 12 hours?
There's 4 hours for the Christmas Eve, which can be taken anytime.
Yep.
And then there's the 8 hours for the previous Columbus Day.
Hypothetically, you could keep the 4 hours for Christmas Eve. That's very important. That's everyone except for the departments that can't close down. And then you trade off the 8 hours floating to an actual holiday. So just something to think about. So Vice Mayor, thank you so much. I look forward to hearing more.
Thank you. Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I kind of had to do my own math, so if I'm off by a digit or something, please forgive me. But it looks to me, if we look at our peer cities and we combine the number of holidays we all give, plus the holidays that some of us give and others don't, plus the varying levels of floating holidays that we provide, it looks like Phoenix has 19, Mesa has 14, Tempe has 13, and all the rest of us, Glendale, Avondale, Chandler, Goodyear, Peoria, Scottsdale, and Surprise, according to my math, we all provide 15. So we're not out of the pack at all. We're probably right where we should be as far as the number of total holidays and holiday hours that we provide. And then it becomes a question of to what extent do we want to mandate to the employees which ones they choose to observe. And I like the idea of having floating holidays so that employees can make their own choices about what they want to observe as a holiday, beyond the major traditional federal and state holidays. So I'm not compelled, and I hate to say this to our wonderful employees, we're right in the pack where we should be as far as the total number of holiday days we provide. I'm not necessarily inclined to incur $1 million per holiday almost to add more. And with a growing city, it will soon reach $1 million, inflation, everything else. I'm happy that they have the flexibility they have. And, you know, I just think we're okay. I think we're not suffering competitively in the employee hiring world with our other peer cities, because almost all of them offer one way or another exactly what we do. And I haven't heard a compelling reason to make a change. I don't know if we're going to, I've heard from the chamber that they think we should change, but I haven't heard the compelling reasons behind it. I haven't heard that they've analyzed the cost of doing it or the other potential things that maybe we could do to benefit our employees or to make even these days more meaningful, such as Councilmember Aldama was suggesting. Maybe it's not so much about the holiday, but about the meaning behind the holiday, what we can do that, you know, with our two inclusion networks that we already have. I think that, you know, we could beef that up some and accomplish providing these days the respect that they deserve and still allowing our employees the flexibility to observe the holidays they choose and to work it into their family schedules. You know, they don't operate in a silo like we sometimes do. They have to have other family, you know, schedules meet up with theirs. And it might be better for them to have floating holidays so they can match the different schedules of school districts, other cities, other employers, and such. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Malnar.
I agree with the comments that Councilmember Turner has given to us today. I believe that keeping the floating holidays is important, and it gives the employees the flexibility. I think we could, right now we call it a floating holiday for Columbus Day. We could call it perhaps a floating holiday for the three holidays, Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples, and Juneteenth. And still keep that flexibility for the employees to recognize any of those. Also, I agree with the concept of making it a recognition day that the city recognizes. Continuing the process that we do for some of the other holidays, and perhaps enlarge or make a special day on each one of these additional days where we do recognize the individual groups that these holidays represent and present a program that would be appropriate for recognition of that day. I believe that recognizes that more than anything else. I think by having a program where individuals can come in and speak to the purpose of the day and educating not just employees but members of society and making it available to members of society to come in and participate. I think doing that is appropriate, and I agree that we are, as far as the number of holidays, I believe we are very much in line with other cities. And secondly to that, we just heard from Mr. Lee the concerns the state has regarding a $1 billion shortfall in their budget, obviously due to revenues, sales tax, etc. coming in. I would expect that we're going to also see something like that in the next year or 2 years. And I don't think it's prudent for us to right now extend our budget on this item knowing that that's coming. This is not a one-time expense. We may have monies to do this one time, but this will be a million, nearly $1 million for each holiday every year from here out, plus inflation. And I don't think it'd be prudent for us to take that action today. So I would be of the opinion to leave these holidays as are, mainly because of the cost, and I don't want to take away a floating holiday that members of our staff now have the benefit of choosing. With that, thank you, Kate.
Thank you. Councilmember, any comment?
Yeah, I mean, they made some great comments, so it can be very brief. Councilmember Turner and Councilmember Malnar summed up my feelings. I think I'm not looking for a change at this point either. Thank you.
Councilmember Tomachoff, we'll note that she has joined the meeting. Any comment?
Yeah, you can skip me because I'm trying.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're on item 2. All right, I will offer comment while Councilmember Tomachoff is reviewing. I too do not support increasing the number of paid holidays, but I do like the idea of offering further recognition of holidays that we do not offer paid days for, just like we do for Cinco de Mayo and MLK. We have lunches, we celebrate those events, and we educate at the same time. And I would like to see us pursue doing that kind of thing for these holidays rather than offering more paid time off. Councilmember Tomachoff, any comment?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I didn't get to hear everything that Councilmember Mullner said, but I do have some concerns about state shared revenue. In fact, I've had we haven't actually seen it, at least in the lag of our monthly reports, but I have talked to other people, and especially we are aware what's happening with the state, is that I think we can anticipate less revenue coming from state shared revenue this coming year, with that on top of the rental tax that we know is going away. And just because of the nature of how things have gone the last couple sessions as a legislature, I think we need to be mindful that there could be other things that we have to address as far as our budget with less revenue. So I don't think this is probably the right time. And I mean, this is, I think, not out of character for me at all. I think I'm always err on the side of caution when it comes to spending more money. This could be $1 million. Another thing would be, I wouldn't want that to affect the amount of salary increases we're able to offer our employees. This, I mean, if we spend this $1 million, does that mean that we're not going to be able to offer, better salary increases for merit? And I'm not exactly sure how we're going to do it this year, but I wouldn't want that to affect it too, because if I could, Mr. Brown, what generally is the dollar amount that we spend on salary increases for employees? I know we offer, kind of a scale for merit, but we have a standard, the COLA. What did we offer last year?
Vice Mayor and Councilmember Tomachoff, I wouldn't have that number right off the top of my head. It varies from year to year depending on COLA, depending on a lot of different things. On average, I believe we were able to do around 7.5% last year on average. So that dollar amount, I'm not sure exactly what that dollar amount
I would say
to.
probably a percent is somewhere around $1 million. Am I in the ballpark that of what, a broad overall salary increase is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1 million?
Yeah. Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this would probably affect the employees as well, whether they're actually seeing their own increase. Would probably, depending on what they would rather do, is rather have that extra percent than have an extra holiday. So I just think that this discussion, especially like with the situation of the economy and the situation we're in, with the recession looming, inflation the way it is, I just don't think we're in a position to make this decision at this time. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Tomachoff. Further comment, Councilmember Aldama.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Question, how many holidays do we have? Is it 12? How many?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Member Aldama, currently we have 12 total,
12.
including the floating holidays.
Okay. So when, for an FTE, for any FTE in the organization, are those, are the holidays built into their fully loaded salary costs, or are they not?
Yes, the Mayor, Councilmember Aldama, or Vice Mayor, Councilmember Aldama, yes, those are built in.
They are. So the notion that if we were to give another holiday would take away from possibly, Councilmember Tomachoff didn't say definitely, but the potential of losing salary couldn't happen, because if they got a holiday, it's part of their compensation. So, look, I understand. I don't think the numbers are correct, but the council has spoken loud and clear, and there's not much fighting this one. But just want to be clear that holidays are part of an FTE's fully loaded salary. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment?
Vice Mayor.
Councilmember Turner.
Thank you. As I mentioned, I was doing math in my head quickly. So if I would like to request that we do get an accounting, a total of exactly the grand total of how many calendar day equivalents, work day equivalents that we and our peer cities give. Because, I mean, on one page we got 9, on another page we have, some give this and some give that, and then we have on another page the floating time, and I'm just not, it didn't add up to me. And I see a number on page 6, but I wasn't getting those same numbers when I was looking. So or just confirm that page 6 is accurate if 6 is accurate.
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Turner, page 6 includes the floating holiday. So if you back the floating holiday out, for example, for the city of Glendale, it's 10 holidays. Then we add the floating holidays in it, and that adds to that. So, 10 and a half holidays. So, so that page on page 6 adds everything together and then compares. So that's what that number shows.
Okay, so somewhere I'll admit that my numbers may not have been accurate, and if these are in fact accurate, it still, to my point, has Glendale in the pack with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other peer cities. So 8 of us total are offering the 12 workday equivalents. Tempe offers an additional day. Phoenix offers 2 more than we do. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Turner. Any further comment from council members? Then I am seeking consensus that we give direction that we do not increase the number of paid holidays for employees. Do I have consensus on that?
Yes.
Yes, and I'd just like to add, though, that we do
Yes.
look at the additional education
Well, I'm
opportunities.
going
Okay.
there next. So we have consensus to not add additional paid holidays. The second suggestion was that we look at offering on these days additional enrichment in terms of either a luncheon or educational programs in the spirit that we do other holidays that are not days that are taken off. Do I have consensus on that idea? Yes? Councilmember Turner? Yes? No? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes? So you have consensus to move forward with that concept as well. Thank you very much for your information.
Thank you.
Ms.
Thank you.
Ms. Bauer, would you introduce item 3?
Karaoke at Peoria and Saraval, AN 244, annexation located at the southeast corner of Peoria Avenue and Saraval Avenue.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, here to provide staff report on item number 3 is Tabitha Perry, Deputy Director, Development Services.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Good afternoon, Vice Mayor and council members. Today, staff is seeking and asking for a consensus to proceed with the annexation application AN 244. The subject property is approximately 12.4 acres in size. It's located in the county at the southeast corner of Peoria and Saraville Avenues. The county zoning classification is intermediate commercial. The applicant is proposing a retail center, with the first development being a 7,000 square foot convenience store with fuel service stations. If council was to adopt the annexation, the city would apply the most compatible like zoning. In this case, it would be C1 as well, but it is identified as neighborhood commercial. Here is a vicinity map that shows the proposed location, which is approximately 11.5 miles to or from City Hall. Here's the current annexations map. As you can see, the only item that is depicted on this map is the one before you right now, as we have slowed down with our applications for annexation proposals. Here's the annexation map, which depicts the proposed location. It is abutting our MPA lines, the 10-foot strip annexation lines for the city of Glendale. And you can also see that it's adjacent to Peoria Avenue, which will be controlled and maintained by the city of Surprise, as well as Saraville Avenue, which will be controlled and maintained by the city of Glendale. Here's an aerial map depicting the subject location. To the north is single-family homes that are approximately 7,000 square foot in size. To the east and to the south is single-family homes as well. They're averaging about approximately 35,000 square feet in size. Upon development, it's anticipated that there would be one access off of Peoria Avenue, and also anticipated 2 access points off of Saraville Avenue. Applied Economics, a third-party entity, provided a fiscal impact analysis on the total assumption of the development of a retail center. It is showing that at the completion of the retail center, it would be approximately 38,000 square feet in size, with the building construction being at $6.4 million, comprising of approximately 100 jobs. There's a correction on the one-time fees. The number before you of 270,000 are based on industrial, so there was an error. The actual one-time fees at a minimum would be $465,000, with an annual revenue to the city of $250,000 a year. Here is a comparison of those numbers from a bar chart, outlining once again that the annual revenue would be $310,000, expenditures being $60,000 a year, and the benefit to the city would be approximately $250,000 per year. If council provides a consensus to proceed forward with this annexation proposal, the next presentation before council would be for the blank petition, followed by the adoption of the annexation, which would go into effect 30 days afterwards. With that, I will answer any questions. If not, once again, staff is seeking a consensus to proceed forward with the annexation process.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. Council members, questions? Councilmember Turner.
All in all, I'm supportive of this. It's the opportunity to add commercial out there in the western area that serves the residents both in Glendale and across the border into Surprise and generates some tax revenue for us. So I think we're right on the money there. I just have a question on page 7, the fiscal assumptions. It's 7 acres, I think, or something. I'm just kind of wondering, how does our, and you may not be able to answer this, but maybe they can at some point in the future, how do they project 100 jobs coming off such a small parcel?
Vice Mayor, council members, the assumption is based on outside of the convenience store, there's a potential to have restaurants, retail services, as well as commercial services. And with that, the the reason why they're predicting or projecting 100 potential jobs. It's an assumption if you take in consideration part-time employees as well as full-time employees.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Any further questions?
No, thank you.
All right. Councilmember Tomachoff.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So this is gonna be entirely all retail? Because it's 38,000 square feet, doesn't seem like a whole lot for 12 acres.
Vice Mayor Clark, council members, it's anticipated to be retail and or commercial services, so it can be a variation of the two.
But no, Vice Mayor, if I could, no warehouse.
Vice Mayor, council members, no.
Okay, because it's surrounded by, appears to be surrounded by residential. I do have a question on slide 7 also. Are there going to be required traffic improvements, signals, things like that? I think there's a signal already there, but I haven't been at that corner in quite some time. And if there are going to be improvements required there, will that be the responsibility of the developer?
Vice Mayor Clark, council members, we haven't gotten that far into the details, but there will be some improvements along Cerevel Avenue that's been accounted for within these projections. So there will be some level of improvements that will be the responsibility of the developer.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from council? Do we have consensus to move forward on this annexation?
Yes.
Councilmember Mountard Turner? Okay, we have consensus to move forward.
Thank you.
Ms. Bauer, would you introduce the next item, please?
Council item of special interest, review current number of certified paramedics.
Mayor, members of the council, here to lead staff presentation today is Glendale Fire Chief Ryan Freeberg.
How about now? Is that better? Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, members of council. Returning on the council item of special interest that was brought forward today will be an information provision and an opportunity to provide understanding of methodology and information sharing. I'm not looking for consensus, but to provide background on this topic. As was brought forward, the opportunity for us to come back and represent the fire department inside the mission of the city of Glendale and to make sure that you know that we're aligned with the tenets and the values as identified through the city manager's office. I wanted to make sure you also knew that this topic, this council item of special interest, threads very nicely into our Tier 2 balanced scorecard. Really want to make a highlight of the final sentence in the first bullet. The foundation of recruitment and retention will focus on providing education, benefits, and wellness to its employees and provide employees with any and every tool they need to be successful. And then the second part, the strength and training, and again, the final sentence, offering more training opportunities, strengthening succession planning, and strengthening leadership development. So as we go through this today and we talk about paramedics, the number of paramedics in the fire department, just kind of want to give that as a jumping off point. So Mayor Wires requested this as an opportunity on August 22nd to bring forward this for more discussion, more review, specifically to meet the current staffing model demands deployed by the fire department and review all options for meeting identified shortage without adding additional shortages to staffing. That was what we talked about. We brought forward a scope of work that you approved. Again, we're utilizing our off-duty paramedics on callback as overtime, sometimes mandatorily, means they can't go home, to constantly staff our paramedic seat assignments on our all hazards, our low acuities, and our MRUs. The goal out of that scope of work that you asked me to continue work on was to reduce the reliance on overtime, whether it be voluntarily working overtime, emergency services holdover, or mandatory overtime for our incumbent workforce certified as paramedics. And that's where I want to at least give a little bit of information and context when we talk about our fire department and the men and women that serve this great community. You know, we're an all hazards fire department. We're a fire-based EMS service, emergency medical services, and we're all cross-trained. All of our sworn members are cross-trained at either the emergency medical technician basic or emergency medical technician paramedic advanced life support. So why that's important, so as we get further into the discussion today, is understanding our paramedics work under our medical director, Dr. Gamer. We work as an extension of his medical hand under his license. We're certified, And how we do that is through online or offline medical direction. We have standing algorithms that we treat the symptoms. They get into an algorithm that we work through and give our treatment protocols. If we need more guidance, we can call in. That's online medical direction to our base hospital and get that guidance there. So that's how we kind of deliver that service, is by the extension of the medical director. The type of skill set they provide, as you can see on your slide, intravenous IV therapy, putting the needle in the arm. Our paramedics in the state of Arizona carry 35 plus medications, paralytics, pain control, narcotics, advanced cardiac life support medications, an array of medications that they're trained to deliver. We interpret electrocardiogram. The EKG kind of takes a picture of the heart to treat cardiac issues. They provide electrical therapy. You hear a lot about defibrillate and pacing. We can actually take control of their heart with electrotherapy. And we do provide, our paramedics can provide invasive medical procedures, a cricothyrotomy, needle decompression, endotracheal intubation, kind of putting the tube in the trachea to breathe from. I say that because it is an advanced amount of training that our paramedics provide. And it's an amazing service that our citizens get. To give you scale and scope, a paramedic program takes 9 months to get through. There's 19 weeks, as you see on the slide, of in classroom. We put them on a 40-hour assignment, and they go to Glendale Community College. That's our paramedic program of choice. For 19 weeks, they're doing didactic in-classroom work. They come out and do 5 weeks of clinical rotations, whether that's in the emergency room, surgical rotation, obstetrics, pediatrics, respiratory. They get a kind of a full in-hospital install on kind of that definitive care in the hospital setting. And then they do 12 weeks of vehicular rotation where they're out on the fire trucks being coached and precepted by tenured members of the organization on what does it then look like to deliver that service under a guided and coached opportunity. And then we bring them back in to do 2 weeks for a national registry. You may have heard that before. The nursing field has to do a national registry. EMT paramedics, EMT basics have to do a national registry test. And we make sure they're prepped. It's a pretty extensive, not only a written, but a tactile test they have to get through. So again, giving you an idea of what they do when we talk about paramedics. Again, on the next slide, I just want to make sure you get kind of scale and scope when we talk about paramedics in this council item of special interest. Again, from a collegial standpoint, when they're in the classroom, this coursework you see in front of you is probably 60 to 70% of the way onto an AA degree from a community college. If they had their gen eds, they could get that. But this is significant coursework they have to do to become a paramedic. Again, that's why it takes the time, the 9.5 months to get through this rigorous program. So what have we done? What has the fire department done to talk about this issue of do we have enough paramedics to staff the truck? Well, as you remember last year, we redeployed some of our incumbent workforce. We had a number of folks staffed to a 40-hour assignment that we redeployed back into the 52-hour assignment on the fire trucks. For those, when we talk about a 40-hour employee, it gives us 2,080 hours. A 52-hour employee gives us 2,704 hours. So we were looking to capture more of those hours out in the operations. Recruitment and hiring. We have 7 members in a current academy. One organically is already trained as a paramedic, so we're ahead there. 6 of those were what you appropriated to the fire department last budget season to get our LAs and MRUs up to 7 days a week. That'll happen probably end of January, early February when they get out of the academy. Paramedic training. Again, in our budget process, you have provided funding for us to send current workforce to school. We have currently 6 members going to school right now to get their paramedic certification. And in kind of the rolling 12 months, when I got here, we had in the process of sending 15 paramedics to school. So you're investing in that. But if you see there in that bullet with the asterisk with net 8, though we spent money and sent 15 to school, we only realized 8 of those due to attrition, whether scheduled or unscheduled attrition through resignation, retirement, whatever it be, because that's a reality, and we'll get into that here in a second about how does attrition impact the fire department. We also took the opportunity to rehire into some vacancies. We had a couple members in our organization that took different opportunities, and after a few months, they asked and put their hand up to come back, kind of a boomerang employee to the Glendale Fire Department. They left in good standing, and we brought them back in, and they were both paramedics. So we brought them back into vacancies and put them back on the truck after a little bit of a refresher and get them ready to respond again. And we went to market with a lateral process. We went out into the region to see if there were some folks who wanted to come work for the city of Glendale and leave where they were working. We didn't get the return of investment that we thought we were going to with getting paramedics, but we got 2 great employees that were able to come across the street and get on our truck. So we've taken some steps to try to, the speed to market to get folks out on the truck as paramedics. So in the scope of work that we talked about, the deliverable number 1, and I know you have some documents in front of you, is identify if there is a staffing gap in the current number of certified paramedics that creates a reliance on overtime to constantly staff paramedic seat assignments, and identify the why. Why, if there is one, why is it occurring? So when you get into this next slide, and we did our regression analysis, and we dig into the data, and we pull out the budget, and we look at the numbers, and we look at the leave, and kind of paint the picture. So I'm going to kind of do the point of time we delivered this, I think November 13th, to make sure it met the agenda timeline. We have 246 employees that are assigned to work out into the field operations. Now, we have staff back of house. We have 40-hour sworn chiefs, 40-hour sworn captains that work staff assignments. I'm talking to folks that their primary daily assignment is to get on those all-hazards trucks and deliver the service that they're expected to. Of that, 113 today out in the 52-hour workforce are trained and compensated as paramedics. That's only just under 46% of our workforce. Based on our leave factor, so there's a reality of, and we talked about leave earlier, when folks come to work and being an employer of choice, we have a great benefit package, but that also is the reality of our employees use their leave. And between their benefited leave, the realities of injury, and the realities of attrition, our workforce, our entire workforce, has a leave factor about 27.8%. So we can expect them to be here about 70 to 73% of the time. When you apply that to the number of paramedics we have, that creates this almost 85,000 hours of leave that we have to account for somewhere. So we either have to call a body back, or we have enough unassigned people on the shift, a rover, I know that's some nomenclature you're familiar with, that can fill into that vacancy when that person is on leave for whatever reason. Fiscal year to date, again, looking back probably end of October, we had spent about $800,000 to constantly staff paramedic seat assignments. We were about $300,000 in BLS, so you can see there's a spin of the wheel that really lands on the ALS. And again, pointing back to this root cause, we don't have enough trained paramedics. We have plenty of folks out in the organization that have put their hand up that want to be trained. We got to get more paramedic attributes on the sleeves of our current workforce. And the training does not keep pace with attrition. There's a reality that we talked about. We'd sent 15, we only netted 8. There's a reality in the Glendale Fire Department, and we'll get down to it here, that in the next 5 years, fiscal years, including this one, we're going to lose 45 members of the organization to the PSPRS. And out of that, real quick, just to give you context, 8 chief officers, 18 captains, 14 engineers, 3 firefighters, and out of those 43 people, 24 of them are paramedics. So that's real. And the reality of that is, if that person was to leave today, I won't realize their replacement for 6 months. And that's pure overtime. That body and those hours do not exist. In reality, I had a member right before Thanksgiving, tenured member of our organization, paramedic, got an opportunity to go work in Oceanside, is going to take that opportunity. We'll get that vacancy in a January academy, but they won't be out on the line until May, June. That's the reality of attrition. And then just for the reality of not a tsunami that's coming, but this reality of 43 people in the next 5 years of tenured service, that's about 800 years of organizational and institutional knowledge that's leaving. So I don't want to conflate the issue with the paramedic, but that's a reality that we're dealing with. That goes down into whether it's benefited leave, injury. We're a tough job to grind through. We have folks that get injured. I currently have 9 folks on some form of modified duty, and 8 of those folks are paramedics. So again, another reason why this gap continues to occur. So when you talk about if there is a staffing gap, what are some recommendations? What are some things we can do? Well, I would offer that we need to invest in our incumbent workforce. We have men and women here that are ready to be trained, are willing to be trained. I just got something in my inbox today. We do an internal recruitment of who wants to put their hand up, go through a written and a practical to go to paramedic school. I have 20 members ready to go whenever we get the opportunity. But part of that is setting this 58% as the percentage of the 52-hour workforce are paramedics. Now, why I say that, that's adding 32 paramedics. If you go back a couple slides, we talked about the 85,000 hours of leave created. If you divide that by 2,704 hours, the number of hours someone would give us, you divide that, it's 31.4. I rounded up to 32. Invest in the people that are here. Invest in the folks that are tenured members, get them to training, they know the organization, get them the paramedic patch and get them out in the world. But how I would like to do that is to bring that forward as an annual supplemental, is bring that forward to compete as a priority with the rest of my business partners, let you folks prioritize that need and bring it forward as a supplemental. And I put an asterisk at the bottom of that. We have to continue to talk about the realities of attrition. There is the reality that it takes me 6 months, best case scenario, if someone leaves today, to get a body and then to get them a paramedic type training another 9 months. I mean, you're into it for about a year and a half. So there's some opportunities we can talk about of how do you address that. So let's get to the, cutting it down. What's this going to cost? What's the reality? Tuition and fees, backfill. That's where a lot of the cost comes to. Now, that second line when it talks about $52,000, I've accounted for hour coverage using overtime to try to fully realize the cost so I don't come in low and it comes in later and you say I bait and switch. I'm not going to do that. There are realities where some days if that paramedic student is in school and that rover is there that day, then that's a day that didn't create overtime. But I wanted to fully realize the overtime impacts when you send someone to school. When they're out doing some of their rotations, we have to pay them. I have to pay a preceptor who's doing the coaching and guiding toward the end. So all totaled, it's $70,000 to send one person to school in that 9.5 months when they're out there getting their training.
Chief,
Go ahead,
I have a question.
Vice Mayor.
The total for 32 employees is $2.24 million, but you can't train 32 employees at one time. So this is going to be paid out over subsequent budgets, correct?
Yes, Vice Mayor, that's a yes.
Okay, thank you. Continue, please.
Yep.
Vice Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, Chief, I
Yes.
don't want you to go too far because I have a question of something you said, and I don't, just if you're okay with that. You said, I just wanted you to define, so you mentioned that there were 43 staff members, and you named off the roles. 24 of them were paramedics. Is that letters of intent to retire? Are they in drop? How do you determine that so that those who are watching say, well, how do you know 43 are leaving? Because you can't just ask someone to leave. So can you?
Vice Mayor, members of council, Council Member Adama, we have a report from the Public Safety Personnel Retirement System that we track when people go into drop, how long they've been in drop, when is their expected end of drop date, if they've chosen to extend. So when we look at a 5-year outlook, try to do some predictive analysis, and we go, where are our folks who put their hand up and said they have given their time to the fire service and to the city of Glendale, and they're coming up on their 25 years. I can look and say, hey, there's 6 people that are set to leave in the next 6 months. That's real. And I can look at the next year and the next year to go, we have a large year where one year our largest number is 11 people in 26, 27 that are scheduled. That's scheduled attrition. That's their own choice. This has nothing to do with I'm choosing for another job or leave the career or other decisions. So we use the PSPRS data to at least give us a starting point to have the conversation.
Okay. Thank you for that, and I'll just agree with you that attrition is a significant issue for any organization, especially with fire and police. So I just wanted you to define where that lies. So it's still not 110% accurate, but at least I know what your thought process is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please continue, Chief.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So the 32 paramedics, and I want to put the marker down, then we talk about ongoing costs. A lot of these we'll talk about are one-time, get them trained, get them to school, not minimizing any dollar amount if appropriated. But when they are graduated, certified, and endorsed by our medical director, they do get a stipend to be a paramedic. Today's dollars is $8,400. So at some point when all 32 paramedics were trained and fully invested in, there's this $270,000 ongoing to pay paramedics their stipend. So it's not just the cost of training, there is a cost that comes later. So what are the next steps? And it leads nicely into what the Vice Mayor said. My interest is to work with Budget and Finance. I've talked with Levi and Amy many times about kind of the methodology and kind of how we get to the leave factor to develop a cost-effective financing plan that this is over time to achieve and maintain the standard of 58% of our 52-hour workforce has the paramedic attribute. So again, I see this as a financing plan, and this is working with the realities of the available dollars, the realities of my business partners and their priorities, and try to thread this over 2-3 fiscal years, and then always coming back and looking at the data, looking at the analysis. If I needed 10 right now, I just lost one the other day. That's 11. We have a couple folks we know that are kind of maybe putting their hand up. That could be 2 more. So I have to come back to this. That's why I wanted to provide understanding and perspective. I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all today. I want to make this more of a financing plan and give you an opportunity to see this each year. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Vice
Very,
Mayor.
very good, Chief. Any questions on this side? Councilmember Melnar.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. It all makes a lot of sense to me. Just a couple of follow-up questions regarding recruitment. Now, obviously, this problem isn't going to go away with adding 32 now because the problem continues. So have you looked at the cost benefit of, and again, is it possible to add the requirement of paramedic for a certain percentage of our hires when they come on board? And is that level that they would come in as a paramedic, would that qualify them for what you need? That's the first question.
Vice Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Molnar, we absolutely can. I believe there's opportunity for innovation and creativity in any recruitment strategy. Out in the world of our industry, folks use incentives. They do laterals. They open to the national market, the local market. We bet on being an employer of choice and wanting to be a Glendale firefighter. So we feel that there is opportunities. We just completed a recruitment. We have an active list that will go pretty quick. We have conversations with my boss and my staff about how can we leverage the talents nationwide and here in the region. And yes, you can prop that up, but wanting to make sure we meet the interests of HR and legal, that we're doing it the right way. But absolutely, that can be a requirement. Being an EMT basic is the min qualification to come through the door.
Okay, so you could increase that qualification, which may help alleviate this over time. And is there a payoff? Because if you get more people in, you're going to get more people earning the stipend. Do you ever see it being too many? Do you see that as a potential where if you put it in as a requirement, you'd have too many paramedics that really aren't required for the department?
Vice Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Molnar, that's a great question. Advanced life support paramedic provision of care is the gold standard. Would it ever be too many? I'm not going to say it would be too many. Having more care on a critical incident is a good thing. I think the realities of attrition will normalize any of the decisions we're making. And that's why I try to set the marker at 58%. You know, that you're trying to find a nice little, the barometer bubble, if you will, of if we can stay in there, we're taking care of the leave factor, we're not getting too far down the road. So that's why I'm trying to get a benchmark in there.
Okay. I just see you achieving that 58%, and then trying to maintain it using your recruitment process a little bit more so than the training process that you have outlined here today.
Vice Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Molnar, absolutely. If we can get ahead of it with our recruitment strategies, it would take some of the burden off of some of these types of supplemental requests in the future.
Thank
Absolutely.
You. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Excuse me, wait 1 minute, please. Councilmember Turner, any questions?
Nothing.
Councilmember Tomachoff?
Vice Mayor,
Questions?
I called for you before. Councilmember
Excuse me.
Melnar.
Excuse me, I'm trying to give other people an opportunity. Councilmember Tomachoff, any questions?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Chief Freeberg, how does our $8,400 stipend compare to what other cities are offering and a stipend for their paramedics?
Vice Mayor, members of council, Council Member Tomachov, I would like to go get that information for you so you have the definitive. A lot of that's in some MOUs. We're in the mid-range. Ours is based on a percentage of a salary, where other folks do a hard number. So as we slide through the realities of our department, that could slide. My past employer was about $10,000 in trying to stay with market.
Okay.
But I would like to bring that
Is
back
this
to
an
you.
MOU item, or this is this is not part of an MOU, the stipend for a paramedic?
I'd have to look at Kevin Phelps in an MLU.
It is an MOU, okay. Because I was thinking sort of along the same lines as Councilmember Melner, but I was thinking more along the lines of offering an incentive to get laterals to move here. But obviously, if our stipend isn't competitive, then that's not going to work anyway. But I was thinking that, I think we were pretty successful in offering incentives for lateral transfers for police officers. We've been relatively successful, I think, in that endeavor. And I think that, in the long run, it gets them out into the community faster, because that's the idea, is we want to protect the community. That's the idea, is to get these people out, deployed, so that, they're able to render aid. Pretty sophisticated. Paramedics can deliver pretty sophisticated aid. But if our stipend isn't competitive, that's not going to work. So I think that would need to be part of the conversation. And I know we've had this conversation before. I was a little surprised because it was only 6 weeks into the budget. But are you looking for a mid-year budget adjustment, or this is just going to be a supplemental when we start talking about the budget for fire?
Vice Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Tomachov, my interest and my intent has always been to bring forward as a supplemental for review as part of the process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Aldama.
Chief, thank you for the presentation, and thank you for your leadership. You lead a fine group of firefighters, and I appreciate you all. You and I had several conversations. We met twice on this subject, and both times you mentioned that this is something when you came in you started to work on, so I can appreciate that. With regard to the comments of adding the paramedics to the hiring process, I like what you said earlier, that we would prefer to invest in our existing employees, our staffing. Do you feel, if we were to have this just approved today and you had to go out and recruit within the organization, would you have a hard time recruiting, or would you have too many hands up and not enough positions? Then I have a few other questions.
Vice Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Aldama, November 21st in my inbox is a list of 20 names that are ready to go. We do this every year. We have an eligibility to select list that goes through a process, a recruitment process. They get vetted through our in-house subject matter experts. So I have members ready every year to go to paramedic school.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And it's not far-fetched to do what some of the council members are mentioning, but to invest in our existing employees is really big. It's huge. Second thing is, I'm a little confused. So you say that there's a staffing gap, and I believe you and I trust you. It sounds like it's imperative that we do something. My understanding is that the top of a class is in February. Why wouldn't you, and you have 20 people or 21 ready to go, why wouldn't you ask the council today to start in February if the staffing gap is so significant? And when you and I talked about this very question, you assured me that that you were able to cover it. And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but why wouldn't you ask for it to start February, and you would ask for that funding now instead of waiting until, let's say, July or during the budget process?
Vice Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Aldama, I would offer what my DNA municipal background has said. I'm very sensitive to coming mid-year to ask for requests. I know I have 20 other business partners, plenty of priorities from the dais, the city manager's office. There's a supplemental process. There's a budget process. You have given us funding. You have given us opportunities to train folks. We have an overtime budget. We have amazing folks willing to put their hand up and work. I stick with the process. I feel like the 9.5 months, nothing's going to get fixed overnight. This gives a nice roadmap for everybody. It gives you an opportunity to look at the way forward with how we're going to do it, and to be transparent and very sequential with how we do our work. So that's kind of my methodology.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. So not only do we have a concern with not enough paramedics and the staffing gap, we also have, and you mentioned it here, and thank you for bringing it up, the overtime, the mandatory overtime, that weighs heavily on our firefighters. So I'm just wondering why we're not doing this now, in my opinion only, and I've heard from some firefighters that, you know, the overtime is heavy. It's wearing them out, and we're really could burn out a firefighter. And so why would we wait 9 months of not only waiting to get paramedics in, but also 9 additional months of overtime for some staffing? So I would be interested to know if that could be an ask today for the February class. And I don't know exactly how many you would send, but if we didn't and we waited 9 months, if we did it in February, this time next year, they'd be ready to go, badged, on board and ready to go. If we wait 9 months, we're almost talking 2 years. So wanted to leave that with you and just understand more why there isn't and I respect the fact that you don't want to come midterm, and I even more so respect that you recognize other departments that have needs. Absolutely. We're talking about police, one of them. And so every department is important and crucial to the organization and to our citizens. But I'd like to know if that could be a request. Now, what does that look like?
Vice Mayor, members of council, Council Member Aldama, I would go back to my previous comments on methodology, and I would leave that to the electeds and direction you provide me or in my office. Our workforce has stood up. They are working the overtime. As you know, we have great men and women out there working. They're answering the bell when called. Can we quantify the leave? There's some data there. We are relying on overtime, and it's a balance between people and overtime and getting those patches. So that was my interest today, is to give you this type of information to get direction, guidance, and to ask questions about the methodology.
Vice Mayor, last question. Chief, thank you for that. Could you, I'm requesting, and the council should have a copy of it. I'd like to see what the cost is for, what is your bare minimum that you would need right now that would help fill that staffing gap if you were to send some of those firefighters in February? Is it 2, is it 4, is it 6, is it 8? Whatever number you feel it necessary, what does that cost to us? And again, considering that if we start in February, by this time next year, we've got that many people already on board as paramedics. Can we get that information, Mr. Phelps?
Yeah, Mayor, Vice Mayor Clark, Councilmember Aldama, this really is a question for the city manager's office. And so what we wanted to do today was to have this presentation and then take in the comments from the council. And certainly we can go back and we can sit down with our budget and finance people, sit down with Chief Freeberg and look at the realities of accelerating that. I think the comments are valid in terms of doing that. And so we'll, that was kind of the intent of this council item of special interest, is to get feedback, come back. But yeah, it would be something we would need to involve a number of people to kind of look at, but I think it's achievable. But we have to look to the reality of the staffing and there's just a lot of moving parts. We'll look at this and we'll come back with the report back to the council in short order.
Thank you, and that's why I mentioned your name, sir. So just to be clear, will you bring back specifically what I asked for? I don't want it blended in and then we lose that. I'd like to know what it would take for, when you meet with your chief, if the chief tells you 4, what does that cost look like, and can we start in February?
Vice Mayor Clark, Councilmember Aldama. Yeah, I think what maybe would be more fruitful was, why don't we see what we can do in terms of accelerating, build a budget on it, see what the implications, see what our available resources, and come back. But we can also break it down to a per person positional cost. But if we're trying to accelerate, then I think the goal would not to be to fix it to a number, but to see what's realistic that we could increase the class size with available resources, and then just the logistics of how, when you take people off, what's the impact of the rest of the operational organization. So just things we'll want to talk about. What we'll try to do is say, how much can we accelerate the getting the paramedics, and then come back with a report there, and really not limit ourselves to 2 or 4 or 6.
Thank you, sir. That's what I meant, and you said it very, very well. Yes, expedite that, and I look forward to the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Councilmember Tomachoff.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Clark. How many, you said you have 8 in school right now, is that right, Chief Freeberg?
Vice Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Tomachoff, we have 6 in school right now.
6 in school. How many bodies can you still manage and having, you know, I know that that's kind of a balancing act. I mean, you can't take 32 people and put them in paramedic school, because then we can't run the fire station. So how many, what have you looked at, what's the max you could manage at one time, considering, you know, our staffing as it is now in paramedic school?
Vice Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Tomachoff, the short answer is no. The reality is, anything we do to adjust the variable leave will create overtime. Now, today, firefighter Smith may be able and available to fill that vacancy, and then the next shift, a different shift based on the number of people we have assigned each shift, may create overtime. So if it pleases the council, part of Councilmember Aldama's conversation,
right,
that would be threaded into what's going to have. I think the first slide was without additional shortages to staffing. That's the balance of how much variable do you put into the day-to-day.
Okay.
Because the impact is going to be overtime to somebody at some point.
Well, Vice Mayor, if I could, so I was just doing some quick math. That when I just picked the number 8. So I picked 8 firefighters at $52,364 in overtime per firefighter to put them through school. Comes out to $418,912. Now, but the time and a half is costs more than, so I mean, as we get more, eventually the overtime is gonna decrease, because now you're not having to pull them off to do paramedics to go work overtime. So I mean, I hope that, you know, I know we have people here smart enough to be able to figure that out. Is how do you balance between, there's going to be a sweet spot somewhere where I know you're not going to be able to cover the savings, but for every person we put through school, we're having one less person we're going to have to pull for overtime. So eventually there's an advantage, I think, to expediting this financially too, because the sooner we get there, the sooner we can stop paying overtime. And I had one more question for you, Chief Freebergers, and I don't know, because I know we've had this conversation with you and with other people, especially police and fire, who have a harder time recruiting, is younger people don't really want to work overtime. So is the overtime also part of our attrition issue? Is that they're, you know, and are other cities more well-staffed when it comes to paramedics, so they can go somewhere else and they're not required to work overtime? Because I've talked to, I mean, I have a younger person who's my son, and they really value their time with their family and other things that they want to do, and not as willing to work as much overtime as some of maybe the older generation was. And so I was curious if that was a reason for some maybe leaving and going someplace else where there's not so much overtime required.
Vice Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Tomachoff, again, generational, time and grade, life experiences. We have these conversations, and we're trying to crack the atom on, you know, the balance of respectfully just getting more people sometimes creates more leave issues. Only relying on overtime, these are the types of things you start to see. So it's having this ongoing narrative of conversation. I will offer an opinion that we have worked very hard in this career to talk about managing your time, making sure you're healthy, don't get into burnout, and the potentialities that this new group of industry firefighters hurt us. And they are using their leave and using their time and not into the overtime world. The consequence is what we're seeing today. So these types of conversations, this type of direction, and trying to find the balance of people in overtime, getting the right amount of attributes. We're behind. We need to catch up, and doing it in a responsible way that everyone can see in a sequence, I think then provides a level of consistency to our workforce so they know what they get when they come and work here. We're in a little bit of catch up with our paramedics right now.
Okay. I would be interested will be interested to see the, you know, the calculations that they come back with. And I would hope that they would bring back also, I don't know whether the paramedic stipend is part of the MOU negotiations. Obviously, it's too early to know that, but at least where the 8,400, where we are right now, where that is in comparable cities, of whether we're competitive in what we're offering for the stipend. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Tomajoff. Before I recognize Councilmember Turner, I just would like to make a comment that this is a very complex issue, best solved by the chief and senior management, because you've got a fine balance of trying to figure out how many you can put through school without making a major impact on overtime. So as much as we value the opportunity to micromanage your department, I think it's best left up to you and senior management to figure out this issue and to make it work for the city and for the rest of your fire staff. And with that, I'll recognize Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Well, I think Councilmember Aldama raised an excellent point, an excellent point of view on the issue, and I think that Councilmember Tomachoff has elaborated quite well on it, and I share their concerns and their point of view as well. You've identified that we have a shortfall. We know that a staffing shortfall in paramedics. We know that for local government and for this council that public safety is priority number one. I appreciate, as you put it, you have 20 other partners or to work with, but this is priority number one for us, whether it be police, whether it be fire, whether it be public health through our water services department. You know, if we had a contamination in our water supply, we wouldn't wait until the next budget year to do a supplemental to fix it. We'd step right up and get it done, and we'd apply the resources that we could to it. And I think that this is probably what we need to do here. This is one of those situations, and certainly with the overtime costs, that the sooner you start addressing it, the better off you're going to be. You push it down the road even one more cycle, it's going to be more harmful, more risk, and more cost. So I would like us to have whatever feedback that management thinks we need to have to make a decision on this. If it were put to me today, I'd say go ahead. Let's try to get as many paramedic students into this next class as possible, and because that's how we start. That's the tourniquet on the bleeding artery here, folks. And the sooner we get it on, the better off we're going to be. And I think we ought to. I'd be happy to give direction today to maximize the number of students we get into the next class and start solving this problem now rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Turner. With that, this is an informational item only, and no consensus is asked for. So we thank you, Chief, for the information, and we will proceed on. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, I have a comment.
Yes,
Thank you, Vice
Councilmember
Mayor. I'm sorry
Aldama.
that my inquiries bother you, but I do have the right to inquiry. I do want to address the Vice Mayor's comments, and I don't know how to decipher them, but I hope you didn't feel that I or others were micromanaging you. I have the right as a council member, and that's one of the fundamental things that council members do is the right to inquiry, and we ask questions on the dais. This is the absolutely appropriate place for me to ask questions. And I want to note, for those who are watching, my request for the report, I turned to the city manager and asked him. So, I don't feel anybody else here is micromanaging. And just to note, the budget is the right of the council to approve, not the city manager. However, I do agree that the city manager has the responsibility to collect the information, the data, and bring it back to us. So I don't feel that myself was micromanaging. I didn't know how to decipher that, but I wanted to make clear. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you for those comments, Councilmember Aldama.
Yep.
Thank you, Chief. Ms. Bauer, would
Vice
you
Mayor,
intro-
could-
Yes,
Yeah,
Mr. Phelps.
I'd like to make just a quick comment if I could. Again, want to say that the city manager's office concurs with the need to get more paramedics. We've been working with the fire chief and his team on this. It is a priority. I wish it was as easy as just of finding the money. But as I think the chief indicated, what we're going to try to find is that sweet spot of not impacting the fact that every day, every hour, we have to deliver services. So we're trying to find a way to continuing to deliver the high quality of services, but to fix this problem. So I think we're all hearing the same thing, and so we will come back and we will come back in short order with the plan, and we will try to be as aggressive as we can without necessarily forcing even more people to work more overtime that even burns out some more people. So we're going to try to find that. I would like just to comment in that we've got both our fire chief and our police chief here, and I think that you get a chance to listen to them present. What I will say is, from my experience, and I've done this for several decades now, is our two chiefs have as good of understanding of the day-to-day operations and what it takes to run a first-class organization of any police or fire department that I've ever been personally associated with. So I think we're fortunate that when the chief says he'll come back and provide a plan, I think each and every one of our elected officials can know with confidence that it's going to be a well-thought-out plan, and it will be something we can implement. But again, I think both our police chief and fire chief are so strong operationally, and these are certainly operational challenges, not just budget challenges, but operational. So I want to just call out Chief Freeberg for his presentation, and we will make a priority to get back to the council in very short order.
And I would concur. I thought this solution was brilliant. I don't know who came up with the idea or the strategy, but it certainly is something that we may see other cities doing as well to solve this kind of problem. And with Chair's prerogative, it is 1:35. We are going to take a 10-minute break. We will reconvene at exactly 1:45. We are adjourned for 10 minutes. Folks, I'd like to reconvene the meeting, please. Can we reconvene, please? Can we reconvene, please? It's 1:45, folks. It's 1:46.
Sorry?
Okay, it's 1:46. We're a minute beyond our 10-minute break, and I am reconvening this meeting. Ms. Bauer, would you introduce the next item?
Fire Station 153 project update.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, here to provide staff item on the next item will be led by Deputy City Manager Rick St. John.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, members of the council. I have Chief Freeberg here with me to help with the presentation today. The next two presentations are updates on some construction projects that have been approved by council in the Capital Improvement Program for public safety. This is an exciting project for us, Fire Station 153. As you know, that fire station was built in the early to mid 70s and has lived its useful life, and we're ready to replace it. And so today we're going to provide an update on the work that we've done, showing what the new fire station will conceptually look like and how it's been designed and why it's been designed the way that it has. So again, this is just an informational update on the demolition of the current fire station that sits at about 59th and Thunderbird, just north on the east side of the road, and then the construction of a new station at that same location. Here is a site map of the current fire station and adjacent community center. In phase 1, which is on the left side of the screen, you can see that we will be installing some trailers, temporary trailers, to house our firefighters so we can continue to deliver services from that location to the community surrounding the location. Phase 2 will be the demolition of the current buildings, and then phase 3 will be the construction of the new fire station. The new fire station will sit, as you see depicted on the property. The reason why we place it on the property where it is, there is a light that sits outside of the bays so that a fire engine can enter 59th Avenue on that red light without, so traffic on 59th Avenue stops and we avoid any collisions when the fire engines leave the station. To move that light would be more of a cost that we wouldn't want to try to absorb in this project, and it would create issues because of the adjacency of the other residential streets that come off of 59th Avenue. So we really need to leave that light where it is. And so we've placed the new fire station on that site to utilize that light. In the design of the fire station, we live in the red, yellow, and green zones. The red zones being the areas that have the most contaminants. So it's where the fire engine sits, it's where your turnouts would be, and then the yellow would be that transitional space to get from that hazardous area into the green, which is a living space and a safe area for our firefighters to do their daily trainings or anything else they need to get done in the fire station. The transition zones are in yellow and are placed in a way that it allows for there to be buffer. So we have positive, negative pressures that keep the contaminants in the red space and don't allow those to go into the yellow or the green space to protect our firefighters. And here's actually, I'll back up a little bit. This is a 3-bay fire station with 10 bunks. This can be expanded and contracted based on the needs of any new fire station or any fire station that's built in the future by the city of Glendale. We did that intentionally. We wanted to build a fire station that could be a 2-bay, a 3-bay, a 4-bay. You could add, subtract bunks depending on the needs of that community and the area that it's going to serve. This happens to be a 3-bay fire station. We believe we need the 3 bays for the engine company that'll be working out of the station, Also, a medical response unit that will deploy out of this station. And then in the future, there's a bay to allow for some future growth, an ambulance company, anything that might be needed to better serve that area. The 10 bunks can also be expanded or contracted based on needs. So if you build a 2-bay fire station, you're not going to need 10 bunks. You need less than that. And so the design, the red, yellow, green, it's all designed so you can build out or contract and make it smaller and still maintain that safety. Here are the next pictures are just some architectural renderings of the color schemes and the clean lines that we've tried to create that are the aesthetics of the fire station. And so I'll pause on each of these pictures, allow you to look at them and allow for the community who may be watching to see. You can see on the front above the bay doors, City of Glendale Fire Station 153. Also on the south side of the building, you'll have a marker that says Fire Station 153. And then we've got the fire department logo. The timeline for the project, tonight you'll be seeing on the voting meeting the guaranteed maximum price coming forward. That'll move to mid-January of 2024 to start installing those temporary trailers to house our firefighters when the project is under construction. In late January, they'll start the demolition after the firefighters have been moved into the temporary facilities, and we're constructing a shade structure to house the fire engine. And then project completion will be about May, June of 2025. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions, council? Anybody have questions? Seeing that there are none, thank you both for the presentation.
Thank you.
We appreciate the update. Ms. Bauer, next item.
Property Evidence Facility Project Update.
Mayor, members of the council, here to provide staff report. Again, will be Deputy City Manager Rick St. John, and of course, Chief Briggs will be there to assist.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, again, this is a property evidence facility that was approved in the capital improvement plan for public safety, and we've been in design, it feels like, for the better part of the last year, talking about the cost of the building and how we maximize the space that we need so that we can guarantee, or as best we can guarantee, that this facility will serve the city of Glendale for the next, I think they've projected out till 2040, but likely longer than that. And again, this is just information about where we are with the project and allow you to see what's been designed and what the product will look like when it's completed. This is the location where the property evidence facility will be located at the operations campus. This is formerly the Lazy J trailer park. And so you can see there's a lot of groundwork that's going to need to be done to prepare for the construction of this facility. Again, aerial view of the current property. This is how the property evidence facility will sit on that property, and north is to the right. So straight up would be the west side of the property. This is the design. On the left side of the screen is the first floor. The right side is the mezzanine. It is a tall structure. So what we've determined is by square footage, you get a better bang for your buck, if you will, if you build tall and bring in storage components that allow for the height. And so that's what we've done. The green is the storage area. The purple and pink are office and shared use spaces. And then the orange, I think it looks orange anyway, is where our current forensics team will be. They're currently located out of the main police department, just down the road from us, and they'll be relocated to property evidence. different depiction of the workspace and storage area. And then we've got some architectural renderings. So on the left side of the screen, you'll see the property evidence facility on the west side of the property. On the east side of the property is a large parking area. That large parking area in the future will be likely the site of a crime lab. And so that's depicted on the right side of the screen. And that's all contingent upon council approval through the CIP process, of course. More renderings of the facility. Very functional, allows for public to enter off of Myrtle Avenue to obtain their property or to speak with the technicians that are there. And it also allows for other agencies that may in the future have a need to be at the location to enter in. The timeline, again, you'll see the GMP or guaranteed maximum price tonight in the voting meeting. In mid-January of 2024, they'll start the groundwork, and as you could see in the initial pictures, there's a lot of groundwork that does need to be done before they can begin the actual construction. Once the groundwork is done, they'll begin the construction, and we anticipate that'll take about 16 months with project completion around May, June of 2025. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Council members, questions for these gentlemen? Seeing none, but I have two. You didn't quite get off the hook. One, will the forensics lab be expandable, is my first question.
Vice Mayor, at this point, we haven't even gone into the design phase. The bonds just passed, so I don't have an answer for you on that.
Okay.
But there is space to the north that we've talked about with the property room. So there might be some flexibility, but I couldn't say with any certainty.
All right. Secondly, is this project and the fire project a result of the passage of the voter-approved bonds for public safety? Would you be able to do these if the bonds had not passed?
Vice Mayor, these projects were approved under the existing bond capacity, and so the new bond capacity did not impact our ability to do these projects.
All right, very good. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Ms. Bauer, the next item, please.
Downtown Campus Reinvestment Project Update.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, here to provide the last item scheduled for today's workshop. It'll be led by City Architect Eddie Garcia. He'll be joined by Diane and Michael Jacobs, Holly Street Studio, and from Oakland Construction, Jesse Lee will be here as well.
Welcome all. Please proceed.
We'll try this again. Good afternoon, Vice Mayor and Council. Thank you, Mr. Phelps. We're here to present an update overall on the DCRP campus. We are at another milestone we just completed in the last couple months. Just a quick recap from our last big update on the DCRP, which was late September in a council workshop. We talked about a timeline of completing what we call design development, which is about a 60% completion of the design process, doing some budgeting work, and finalizing some documents in preparation for today's meeting. So we have met that timeline, and today is a big day. We want to review what the building looks like, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we got there. We're going to speak a little bit about our always to talk about our project goals and our drivers for this project. But now we can unveil a bit of what the inside of the building's doing, what the campus overall is starting to look like, and how that's shaping. We will talk a little bit about some materials at the very end. And then at the very end of the presentation, we'd like to show you a brief animation, what we call our site logistics plan, and our partners from Oakland Construction will walk you through that. This, of course, is ahead of another request this evening in the voting session for what we would call GMP number 2. And this is for the initial spend for what we call the demolition phase and the long lead items associated with the beginning of the project. So with that, I will pass the microphone over to Diane Jacobs, principal of Holly Street Studio, and we'll walk you through the presentation.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, members of the council. I'm happy to be here to give you an update, as Mr. Garcia said, of the DCRP project. This is, as you know, a very complicated, wide-reaching project, and so we are mindful always of the goals that you set forth early on before we came on board. And that is to create a campus that's the heart of the community. We need to remember it's a campus, not a building. The amphitheater being a true destination, as Glendale's an arts and culture city. To consolidate community services to serve the public to the best of our ability, and to create a state-of-the-art workplace environment for the workforce that were also referred to in earlier presentations, and to reflect really what the city of Glendale is about, not just the past, but also the present and the future as well. So the design, although often we think of design as something that's visual, really ties back into all of these goals. Those drivers that help shape the building, not just in how it looks, but how it works, what the buildings on the campus stand for, and how they serve the public. So our drivers all along have been to connect your campus, to create, to take advantage of this existing resource that you have, the jewel that is Murphy Park, and having your civic buildings within. The identity of the building for Glendale, Arizona, of Glendale and for Glendale, pride of place. We've created work and city spaces so that the city is not just a great place to work, but also a reminder that it's a great place to live and a great place to do business. The department stacking of the buildings, which includes council chamber and city hall, were discussed over several meetings, not just with the staff and leadership in the city, but also with the public. We have a very cohesive, integrated workforce that we're designing for, and the building reflects that. There's also room for growth. One thing we know is that we don't know what the future looks like for working, either on municipal level or any other level. And so this building, this campus is future ready. And sustainability. The building will be a lot more energy efficient than the existing building, and it will displace as such, and it will be high performing not only in its design, but in the way that it creates a healthy work environment, a healthy business environment, and healthy public spaces as well. But the biggest design drivers, as evidenced by these slides, were all of you. The citizens of Glendale we spent a lot of time listening kind of in bigger groups and in smaller groups to try to understand what your priorities were. And again, those informed the drivers that I just described. We also worked very closely with those folks that were not part of the meetings that were here on the central campus, but we visited each of the districts and we shared the design progress along the way. They were very informative listening sessions. And up close, we worked with each of the departments to understand not just how they wanted to see the floor plan come together, but also what they needed to perform their tasks at a very high level. So let's talk about the campus. A connected campus is not just about connecting the pieces that are in the campus, on the campus, adjacent to the park, but we heard a lot from the public of the importance of downtown. So we endeavored to design this campus, and again, this is progress in a way that connects to downtown Glendale and greater Glendale across the board. So this is a familiar slide. These are the elements of the project. As you know, it is the City Hall building, the amphitheater, Murphy Park, which is going to be developed as we move forward. Right now, it's phased as the next item that we will be looking at. But also we have the parking garage, and don't forget, we moved the staff into other buildings as part of this project for continuity of operations. The campus now not only reflects in this design an integrated with the landscape kind of attitude, but also walkways and an openness that connects to downtown and connects better to Murphy Park. So you can see that Murphy Park is something in the last slide that will be developed as we move forward. Here, what we show is an amphitheater and a promenade that links both the City Council building and the City Hall building into one kind of service-oriented campus, with the focal point being kind of this public place for enjoyment and performance of the amphitheater. We understand that resources are precious on all of our public projects, especially, you know, trying to do something very ambitious and make sure that we stay within budget, within resources. We created an amphitheater that gave you the maximum amount of shade and technical ability for all kinds of performances, while not taking over the park and adding kind of a weight to the center of the campus. So the next thing that we focused on was the identity. As you know, the existing building was designed during a time when government, I think, strove to be sort of important and maybe a little bit distant and a little bit sort of kind of mysterious in some ways, you might say, from the public. Now municipal governments and community organizations of all kinds are something entirely different, embracing those that you serve. So the identity of the building really ties back to what this elevation and what we're exploring with the design of the building. We were judicious in the use of open windows and glass to make sure that we're not gaining a lot of heat in the building, but very generous with views from the inside. We see this as a place where you can be in the park and walk through the first floor and have that first floor be part of the city, and then look up and see those who are working in the city serving, and vice versa. We're looking at very simple, timeless materials, unlike the existing stucco that's on the building, something that will last long, will look good in our environment, age very well, and portray a municipal kind of stance for this important building. You can see here from the section that the amphitheater now sort of gradually grows up into the park, and that it's connected. It's no longer kind of a moat-like experience that you had in earlier schemes or the existing one. This is a placeholder for the part of the building that is facing Glendale Avenue, and we have set aside a panel there for art that might help further promote the message and the identity of Glendale, Arizona. Like many municipal buildings in the past, something special, something that identifies this building as unique to its place and its function, and a plaza along the southwest corner so that you have direct, safe invitation and entry from the parking garage into the building. This slide shows from the center of the campus where you see the amphitheater sort of dip down to the garden level, which will have a brand new courtyard, another entrance to the building, and a promenade rather than the heavy kind of dark spaces that you currently had in the last scheme. In this one, you see a promenade walkway that links all of downtown to the center of the civic building, and lit up spaces on this ground floor showing that this is accessible and available and safe for citizens, people that work here, and people that do business with the city. There's also opportunities throughout the campus. This is an image near 59th Avenue in Glendale that shows where we might put digital displays so that events and other happenings with the city are able to be advertised and shared with those that pass by. And the plaza that faces the parking garage now will have more human scale, like benches and entries and trees, human scale devices, so that it's very, very clear how you can enter the building, and it's very, very clear to understand what happens up above on other floors as you come to this campus. You can see one of the advantages of this existing building is that you have many levels, and you could see on the lower left part of the screen how the land sort of dips down, and we create this whole other level now that allows for light and landscaping and a whole other kind of resource of office space to use that was previously not available. And this shows an image at night, and the idea is that this is a 24/7 facility. Should you want to use it that way, there are many, many flexible opportunities to celebrate as well as do the business of the city in and around these spaces. So City Hall itself is a bit of a Tetris project in the sense that there are several departments that work very closely together, but each have their own unique requirements. So we spent a lot of time developing these spaces in a framework that's flexible, that is embracing of different work modalities for the 21st century, that also embraces the idea of a healthy work environment for those that come and choose to develop a career with the city of Glendale. These spaces will be something that is uplifting and healthy and productive and a really good way for people to collaborate in order to serve the city at the highest level possible. And what's interesting about working with an existing building is that you sort of inherit a shape. And this shape that we inherit looks much like what you see on your screen right here. And the nice thing about it is that it's a solid structure that we've been able to sort of take advantage of and create a framework that allows for private offices to be more at the center of the plan and open lit areas at the edges and collaborative spaces in some of the kind of triangle zones with great views out to the city and from the city into the building. So here's an example of what that looks like on all of the office floors, which, as you recall, are levels 2, 3, and 4. We have a very flexible framework, as mentioned. If departments change or shift or grow, we have accommodated for that. And everyone who works in this building has access to a wonderful park view along the north side of the building, as evidenced by this example slide, which is showing level 4, but this is also what you'd see at 3 and at 2 as well. Down in the sub-basement, which we are calling the lower level, there are wellness spaces. This is also an area for employees to come and enjoy a minute away from the desk to work on physical fitness and other kind of group activities. And this is an image of that training room that is adjacent to that work space or workout area. A lot of what we are doing in these lower levels is finishing out architecturally spaces that can be used for a variety of things in the future. So while you may see sort of a screen here and a bunch of seats, this might evolve into slightly different version of the same thing, but there's flexibility. As you move up to the garden level, the clerk's office, which is vital to the functions of the city and how citizens use the city, the clerk's office is directly off of the entrance at the garden level. We've harvested natural light and made all of the connections in this space safe and secure and easy to get to for a variety of tasks. Adjacent to that, in the garden level, is the city council suite, where assistants and council members have a safe sort of private zone that's also available for those that have an appointment and would like to connect with their council people readily, adjacent to what we're calling the council courtyard, which also gives you an opportunity to walk straight out onto that level in a secure way and meet with members of the community. It's also tied directly to the amphitheater space, which then goes directly up into Murphy Park itself. So you are truly adjacent to and connected to the city in a light-filled way. Here is another example of how those windows have entered into the space, and that stair in the center then leads you directly up to the first floor lobby. This is a shot of one of the offices at the garden level that, again, you can see faces the council courtyard. There's a balance working with Rick St. John and other members of your security task force. There's a balance of kind of openness, accessibility, but at the same time safety and kind of a sense of importance, because this is where the leadership of your city will be officing. As you go up just a short flight of the stairs that you saw in the last rendering, we're calling level 1 the city room. Level 1 is essentially reserved for the public. Level 1 belongs to the city of Glendale. It is where you would come to do business with development services, come to work with financial services, pay a bill, ask a question, engage with now Convention and Visitors Bureau, and there's a small office suite there for economic development, which, as we know, is a liaison in many ways to downtown Glendale, and this can all happen on this level, which we really see as an extension of the downtown area of the street and the park. There's different kinds of furniture arrangements that could take place in here. You have an opportunity to create art exhibits here, or business to business on an everyday basis, or during Glitters, once everything is open again, you now have this city room to do as you wish, to serve in celebration and, in all seriousness, the people that come to downtown Glendale. More images of what that looks like. One of the things that we're very mindful of is that not everything is open office, not everything can be conducted in sort of this big collaborative sense. There are rooms throughout the building where you can have privacy and meetings at different levels for different purposes. So again, flexibility, clarity, wayfinding, this sense of kind of being able to do many things in one place. As you go up to different levels, most of the office floors are very similar. You have a variety of open offices, of more private offices, conference rooms, places to meet and collaborate within that zone, but always in the presence of natural light, which not only saves energy, but as we know, makes for a better work environment, a healthier work environment for all concerned. And these are just images of different levels, or different views on similar levels. Each floor has a conference room that will be shared, so we no longer have silos. We have made arrangements for different departments and different sort of work priorities to kind of overlap in many ways, so that the city can find innovative ways to kind of connect and be able to do this work together, not just as separate departments. So the stacking really has to do with how things are organized in the section of the building. Very tricky with an existing building, and working together with the various departments, we were able to come up with a way that allows for people who need to be connected, who need to work together on the same floor or one or two floors off from one another. This is a diagram that just shows careful calibration of how many people we could fit where, when, but what's critical about this is that there's room for growth and there's room for flexibility. This shows a section through the long way of the building, and you can see how each of the levels have direct access to natural light, direct access, for example, like development services and engineering are working together, direct access to one another, and then direct access to these shared amenities.
Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Should we be asking questions as we go along, or?
Let's see if they can finish their presentation first, and then we'll take questions. Thank you.
So just more images of these stacking. We brought tools for the different groups to use and help us make those decisions together, because there was a high degree of complexity. But I think working together, we were able to achieve a plan that's balanced and, again, able to evolve over time. And we just go through the different plans. The lower level has a lot of storage, which is existing, and we're taking advantage of existing resources down there. Some of the spaces like training rooms and wellness center is at the lower level. At the garden level, you'll see meeting spaces kind of in the yellow zones. There's a council suite directly adjacent to the mayor's suite. You'll be able to kind of work together and see one another, and the clerk all flanking that entrance lobby, which is adjacent to the council courtyard, which is to the top of the plan that you see here. And you can see in this slides that it shows the FTE capacity, but also the potential FTE capacity that will grow over time. This next level is level 1. The bulk of this level is dedicated to serving the public. So there's the city room that faces Murphy Park. It's almost like Glendale's new, it's not huge, but it's comfortable and it can do a lot of different things. Glendale's new living room. And then we have the Convention and Visitors Bureau kind of more down toward the street. What's notable about this plan is if you look at it on the lower right-hand corner, that is currently in the existing building, this dark breezeway. And when you walk through it, you just see tumbleweeds, and you used to see these blinds, and it was very closed and just kind of this no man's land. And now we've moved the glass all the way to the edge of the street so that when you go there, there's provisions to be able to entertain, to have a reception. Again, not huge spaces, but versatile and useful for a variety of purposes, whether they're serious or maybe a little bit celebratory. This is for the city of Glendale. And then level 2, level 3, and level 4 are versions of those framework slides that I showed you that bring mostly private offices towards the center. Those are essential for leaders and managers, but generally speaking, it's an open floor with opportunities for closed conversations at different locations. One thing, as you know, with open floor plans, as an architect working in a studio, we're cognizant of this. We are tasked with making sure that acoustics, that air quality, that a variety of temperature control systems are all balanced in such a way that people can get things done and feel that they're able to concentrate and focus while at the same time they're able to collaborate. And this is the task that we have in front of us as we continue to detail the building. There's room for growth, as mentioned earlier. And one thing that we're excited about is that we were able to add council chambers renovations to this project. As you know, council chambers has some really wonderful bones. There's a great floor plan with a raked floor that we're taking advantage of. Essentially, the work in council chambers involves making it even more ADA accessible and improving the technology, and at the same time adding a little bit of natural light into that space so that when you're there for long workshops, you can know, is it day, is it night, and have this connection also to Murphy Park. Simple renovations that will take advantage of the good bones that are there already and make it work better for everybody. Including a new executive session room that's actually a proper room that you can be visible from the street, and the folks in the city can see what city council is up to. Of course, you're able to close it as well, but it's just a proper conference room that's now been added for the work of the city to be done within the council chambers building. So as we move into the amphitheater zone, what's nice is that we've been able to connect with really wonderful theater consultants, and we've created a theater environment that's just right, not too big, not too small, but with the technology for the kinds of shows that Glendale puts on, that people expect from Glendale, and maybe even a little bit more. We now have a green room space at the basement of the council chambers building, and we have plug-and-play technology so that you don't arrive with a semi-truck with equipment, but you can come with your community groups or maybe even a little bit bigger acts and be able to perform with greater acoustic value, better technology, better lighting, and actually more space to have fun in this zone. So you can see that the amphitheater shows that it is more gradual. It will be, as we develop Murphy Park, it is more connected to Murphy Park. It's a little bit friendlier. It's definitely more accessible to strollers and wheelchairs. And then you see that the promenade runs along the backside of the amphitheater, connecting the whole campus. Other images of the amphitheater that show that as well. And sort of a technical drawing, but it begins to show the importance of sightlines, the importance of access, the importance of security, how you get in and out of the building, and where people who are performing, including a troupe of 50 little ballerinas, might safely land, get changed, rehearse, and then come in. We know that Glendale, in earlier discussions, takes this very seriously. We wanted to provide something architecturally that could take care of a variety of different opportunities. And this is a section, again, what's important here is that as Murphy Park develops, it will have more of a seamless integration with the greenery. And as you come in, you'll see that the lawn, which is also for enjoying shows, is complemented by more fixed kind of tier type seating, not necessarily chairs, but fixed seating so that you could sort of cordon it off if you wanted to, or you could expand it into one big event. And so right now, you know, we focus a lot on Murphy Park as kind of the focus of the green space and trees, and that is in development right now. Ahead of that, what we're doing is getting the buildings in order so that they can be permitted and we can start construction on that side of the project. You can see, though, that there's quite a bit of landscape going in and around. It's almost like a hint of what's to come with Murphy Park. Number one shows the entry plaza, so you'll be able to park your car and safely walk across a no car zone, a full pedestrian zone along Glendale Avenue, and enter straight into the building and actually just use the building as a breezeway to get you into Murphy Park. Number one is an area that will have shade and sound mitigation by having those trees there and kind of a sense of privacy in, I shouldn't say privacy, I should say enclosure from the street itself. And then number four is what we're referring to as the council courtyard. Number three shows the amphitheater and the planting that will develop as a result of that. And number two fits right outside of council chambers, which could be a really great shady spot to wait and to be prepared for shows, et cetera. And so each one of these areas has been developed with lush landscape that is somewhat native, but in general has kind of a green canopy, a way to sort of express the values that are important in Murphy Park, and a way to kind of create the same feeling, not just in the park, but again, or in the surroundings of the buildings as well. So there's entry plaza, there's the council chambers has another little plaza, then the amphitheater and the council courtyard are also part of this. I'm not sure if we have those. So we move into really what we're focusing on right now is developing the details for the building itself. We did, we cast a pretty wide net in trying to understand what the best materials would be for a building such as this. We know that the previous skin gave the maintenance crew, field operations some challenges. We wanted to come up with something again that was high performance, timeless, and something that was befitting of a city hall. We want to make sure this is kind of a civic building in its presence. So we narrowed it down to two materials, focusing on materials that would play with the color and the light of our Arizona sky. And so we looked at this material here is a terracotta product. It's like a clay cementitious ceramic product that you apply for the skin of the building. And it looks something like this, sort of these very simple, it's a lot like the authentic red tile roofs that you see in Arizona, but this is more of a cladding material that goes around the windows and becomes kind of a highly insulated skin for a building such as this. We looked at the cousin of terracotta, which is brick. And the thing about brick is that we have quite a few craftsmen and we have great trades here in Arizona and amazing accessibility for brick in our state. And we compared the two as very, very similar natural products that would perform the same way. And these are some examples. We're looking towards a medley of light tones on the building so that, again, our Arizona light can play on the building. It will change throughout the day with some metal detailing. And these are kind of the two materials that we studied. You can see that overall, kind of the elevations are very, very similar. We're leaning towards recommending the brick, as it turns out, it being something that is easy to acquire and maintain and craft in a way more, in a more detailed manner. It seemed like it was rising up to the top of the choice material, and so we're leaning on that product, and we're beginning to explore different ways to detail that in a way that's pleasing, but at the same time very modern and expressive of the building that we're creating. Interior finishes, again, a lot of very natural finishes, bright, simple, clean, warm finishes with pops of color throughout the building. And what's also very important is that you have the civic presence of this building, not just in the daytime, but at night. And so we're working with our lighting designers to create something that's really beautiful and notable, not just up close, but from afar at all hours of the day. Another example, this is as you approach City Hall and the amphitheater from Murphy Park, kind of turning up one of the walkways on the promenade. Very accessible. There's ramps, there's stairs, so that there's kind of a seamless integration. And the idea is that whatever happens on that first floor feels very much like a continuation from where you just were across the street in one of the businesses and in the fabric of the neighborhood that's downtown Glendale. That's our presentation for now, and now we have the next, which is the construction sequencing video. It will show you, that was the what, this will show you the how.
Try it one more time. There we go. This is just our digital rendition to try to explain how we're going to construct. You know, the first task is going to be to take down the existing building. One of the major concerns that we have is taking down this amount of construction material in a safe manner. So we're going to be utilizing the already existing driveway to deconstruct and demobilize some of that equipment. One of the first elements we're going to tackle are those structures that connect to buildings so that we can allow equipment and trucks to come through clear and concise. We know that there's a lot of adjacent traffic on both Glen and Glendale, so we'll want to be cognizant of that. A lot of the traffic is going to be held within the site itself, as you can see. Once we take down the structures, we will deconstruct from the inside coming down using trash chutes on the courtyard side, amphitheater side. So we're completely staying out of the public, and then using our new turn lane within our fencing to be able to demobilize that material. Likewise, it's going to be the same methodology of how we're going to construct, bringing materials in through that new turn lane and being able to reconstruct the project from an outward, inward approach. But this will just kind of take you through just the different phases using the temporary stairs access. We're going to go ahead and take the whole entire parking structure to use as our logistics for construction and storage. Once we deconstruct the skin, then we will quickly start to reconstruct the interior skin so that we can build out the inside. As Diane has mentioned, we have good structure, so this building lends itself to quickly be able to be reskinned. And so one of our primary goals would be to procure that material and reclad that skin in very short order, protecting it from the weather, so that we can then turn our focus to the interior and get that built out. And then this is going to continue just to progress as we go from space to space to space. Our primary focus will be the City Hall first, and then we will focus our attention towards council. And then we're using the amphitheater for a lot of mobilization and logistics, and we will work ourselves out of the amphitheater kind of in the final stages, as you see in this rendering. And then if it could only go that fast, right? As we finish this presentation, then it will show us basically demobilizing the project site and then turning it back over to the citizens of Glendale. So if there's any questions after this is finished running, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you. Thank you for an excellent presentation, all of you. It's appreciated. And I think we'll start with Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So just run through some notes that I took here. Page 38 and 39 has to do with the department and program stacking. I don't know if these are pretty well finalized depictions of what's intended on those floors. I was just a little bit confused on 38. On the third floor, it shows the manager's office, economic development, and half of finance. But when you drop down to the next slide, 39, it shows the manager's office and HR on the third floor. What's it going to be? Or do we know?
We do know, Vice Mayor, council members, Councilmember Turner, that this is set for the most part, unless, never say never, but this is set. To our knowledge, this is how we're proceeding. This has been kind of the direction that the architectural team and the engineering team has been given. If you look at this section in the on the slides, this pretty much codifies how that's going to work. The point of entering this slide, the 38, was to demonstrate kind of the process of how we were splitting up people. There were limited numbers of people on each floor. And so this is a snapshot in time that shows how we distributed people and how we kind of worked through it. But the floor plans are more accurate than this in process. And the section shows the accurate sort of arrangement of spaces.
The slide showing now, what slide number is that?
$39, but also I think, this one replaced the old section, but not in information, just in graphics. But if you look at the floor plans that follow, those are accurate. The individual floor plans that follow on slides 41 and beyond, those reflect the accurate layout of the building.
Okay, so I think what I'm discovering is that the PowerPoint pack that's attached to the agenda is not the same as the one that was handed out today. So
I think there was a couple of updates, and that was on our team. We decided to take the stacking diagram, which shows the same information, and just turn it into more of an architectural rendering and less of a diagram.
Okay, well, actually the paper slides that I got today are the same as, at least at this slide, are the same as what was attached to the agenda and doesn't reflect what you just showed on the screen. So
the floor plans have not changed since.
So are we using the version where finance is above and below, on two different floors above and below itself?
Finance, for the most part, is on one floor, but they have some presence on the first level for bill paying. So they have they're part of the one-stop shop, which is on level 1. But their offices, their presence in the building, they had the most workstations needed. And so they were put together. Finance and budget pretty much needed to take up a whole floor. There are quite a lot of employees in that department.
Understood. Again, what's on the screen now isn't, as far as I can tell, isn't part of our agenda and isn't in the slide pack we received either.
If we focus on the floor plans, they're exactly the same.
And then
you can go to slide number 41, I believe. Yeah, beginning on 41, those floor plans haven't changed. They're as designed.
Okay, so 41 through 45 or whatever it is. Thank you. Just because this is the order it was presented in, I have concerns about the amphitheater seating.
Okay.
A lot of our residents, when they come to these events, bring their folding chairs with them, so they have a soft seat, a backrest, cup holder, maybe a pouch for their phone or whatever, things like that. And I'm having a hard time noticing where we're going to accommodate that, or if we intend to accommodate that in this design.
Vice Mayor Clark, Council, and Councilmember Turner, I will say that this design is meant to accommodate patrons who come with amenities like folding chairs and things like that. We have enough width in either the fixed tiers or in the grassy area. But we have not purchased as part of this project fixed seating per se with cup holders and these kinds of amenities. And the thinking, at least on the design side, was that this was more of a park-like setting, and we have used precedents where we show other cities who do something very similar. It's accommodating for a variety of things to be brought in, but we do not have it like a stadium per se or an amphitheater that is directly dedicated to performing arts all the time. The thought here is that it's a park-like setting where some of these things can be brought in, but it's uniquely suited for that to happen.
And don't misunderstand, I wasn't advocating that we should install fixed seating or anything along those lines. My concern is, in the current amphitheater design, we have like 3 different levels that are wide enough to have folding chairs and walking behind. And I don't see but maybe 1 level of that here. I'm just raising the concern. And I'm not suggesting we should install fixed seating and then experience the wear and tear and weather damage and all of that for that. I'm just saying, can we make sure that if it's our intention, still not sure, but the people could bring their own seating, that they actually have a place for it.
Absolutely.
Because that seems to be one of the more popular ways people have used it when I've been there. I guess next on the list was page 30, and that's going to get a little bit complex, but when we're talking about the city council level, the garden level, and the city council suites, I do not support the floor plan that we've been presented. I don't think our charter supports it. I don't think it's a healthy floor plan for the council to be working with today or going into the future. The separation between the manager's office and staff versus the council and our staff is far too great. I made a note for slide 30. In the floor plan that you've presented, this slide 30 is off to the left-hand side as you come in the doors, and I think that something like this probably would be better off centered in the space to where the council, including the mayor, because we don't have 2 separate entities, a mayor and a council, we have a 7-member city council, but that this would be the welcoming station for people who are coming in regardless of which council member they were there to see, and that we would have receptionists or other staff at the front to welcome them as they come in. This would be more centralized in the space, and then all 7 members of the council would be, and our assistants, primary assistants, would be beyond that, something like that. Again, looking at the floor plan, I would prefer, I think, that the clerk's office and the mayor's quote suite would be flipped. And I also don't really, there's a lot of floor space and luxury apparently included into what is called the mayor's suite, and I think that is isolating and is a silo type arrangement that we're really trying to prevent in this whole concept from the top floor to the bottom. And again, even to the point of the necessity for the mayor to have his or her own bathroom, and I say that looking down the road. I mean, I don't see the necessity for that. That seems like a luxury and an expense that our taxpayers don't need to bear. But I really do think that these things I've mentioned need to be addressed. Additionally, the separation where the council assistants have foot traffic on both sides of them and then are separated from the council member they're serving, I think is not productive, and I would think they ought to be closer to the council member and without separation, and that the foot traffic should be kept to one side of them, not both. I think that would be more useful, at least how I use the office, and as I've observed others using it as well. So I think this needs to be reworked, and I have serious reservations about supporting it the way it is. The last thing I'll bring up at the moment, I've got another item or two here that were not as crucial to me, but the one that is regarding the council chambers, and this may not have been your assignment, but I'm curious, and I know others in the community are as well, what is planned for upgrading the audiovisual equipment that we have, because it's been a struggle and it's not anywhere near what it ought to be for a modern community of ours. So I don't know whether you would have that information or the manager would.
Councilmember Turner, I can say that that is the priority of the renovation, in addition to accessibility relative to ADA requirements, is a full upgrade on technology for that chamber. The specifics of it, I'm not prepared to present to you now, but there is a consultant who's on board on our design team dedicated only to making sure that that the meetings work exactly how you need them to work to conduct this business.
Okay, and then before I leave the council chambers, the other thing I wanted to mention, which I did to you in an earlier meeting, it's a concern. I don't know if can be resolved, but as part of incorporating ADA and wheelchair access to the dais area, this plan involves raising that platform, and it creates 3 steps for staff or the public to negotiate if they were to come to what is traditionally our podium in the middle of the room, which gets used a lot. They would be coming up 3 steps to do that, and I see potential problems with that, having watched the Academy Awards and other shows. But I have concerns about that, and I don't know if there's a resolution that you can come up with for it or not. And I do realize that there is on the far side of the room is for lack of a better term for it, the wheelchair ramp, but there is a ramp on that far side if somebody suffers mobility issues. But even the best of us can trip over our own shoes at some point and end up in a spill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Turner. Councilmember Tomachoff.
Thank you. I'm having difficulty navigating. There we go. Okay, the amphitheater confused me a little bit too, because this is the council chambers, because it looks like on slide 56, there's gonna be like an open space down front, and then possibly concrete type seating or similar to what we have now. Is that what at least the concept is for now? I'm looking at slide 56, and I guess it's 57. The numbers aren't changing, so it's for whatever reason for me.
Okay, so Councilmember Tomachoff, is it similar? Is the slide that's up on the screen here
Yes.
a good place
Yeah.
to talk about it? So the idea here is to eliminate, in general, across Murphy Park and all of the outdoor areas, as much hardscape as possible. We know that absorbs heat, and we want to minimize that. What you see down in front is kind of part of the layout of what we are doing to be able to bring different shows to Glendale. It's not that different. It's a little bit more generous. Some people call that the mosh pit. I guess that's a technical theater term as well. But the idea is that that's a porous material so that water can be absorbed. It's not concrete down in front, but you can also bring chairs there as well.
Okay, all right, that's what I mean, there's a little bit of a difference in looking, but I guess what I was trying to understand is in slide 56, it looks like they may be some sort of a plastic type bench thing or something, because they're white looking. If you go to the next slide up from that, and then when you go down, it looks more like a concrete type of like zero maintenance kind of a thing.
Well, we are always in a position, especially in our climate, to find something that's comfortable, beautiful, and durable. And that is exactly what we're focusing on now that we're entering into construction documents, is exploring these materials. And this is something that we'll give an update on. But
okay.
We hope it's something that finds the balance between all of those things and becomes a nice place to eat lunch on a Tuesday afternoon as well as see a show on Saturday night.
Okay. So, Vice Mayor, if I could, I'm looking at the garden level, and I'm wondering what is the press room and why is it on the garden level?
Well, the garden level, Councilmember Tomachuk, the garden level where the yellow zone is had available space. And essentially what that is a large meeting room. And what's nice is that you have no columns in the way, and it's suited for gatherings of any kind. We would not put offices there because there are no windows at that half. There's windows on the northern half, but in that zone there, it's directly accessible to the elevator and stair, which takes you straight up to the security desk. So if you had a planning and commissions meeting, you could bring people straight down there and gather, and then you could go through a doorway into the council suite, and the council could participate in a meeting at that zone. So we had available space. There's a little warming kitchen that's off in that zone as well, and there's storage for AV. So we labeled it press, but really it's meant to be a large meeting room.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Talmadge, I think what we're envisioning that as being like our boards and commissions meet. So it's scalable to a large planning commission meeting if you had a lot of people attending. But remember, we currently meet sometimes over in the B3, and that now is all being kind of programmed as the green room area for the amphitheater. So we had to find an appropriate location for kind of all the different boards and commissions the council has established. We envision that as being the room that would support that.
So, Vice Mayor, if I could, so the boards and, generally, most of our boards and commissions are, 7 people and then a couple of staff members. So it's a meeting of like 9 or 10 people, and rarely does a citizen attend, on those occasions when you're anticipating a big turnout, generally we've used the council chambers for those meetings. So I just, I don't, generally, I think, depending on what the commission is, they meet in the conference room or the vicinity of whatever that department is. So you're anticipating moving all of the boards and commissions into basically where the mayor and council, or basically it gets decided where the council office is. Is that what the plan is? So all the boards and commissions will be meeting in there.
Well, that is the intent. That is the suggestion. Essentially, it is an available, flexible space that will be finished out for a variety of uses.
Okay. And I'm glad you brought up the idea of suggestion, because when this concept was presented to me, I was told, well, this is the feedback we've been getting. And I said, I have not been asked for any feedback or any input at all on where I'm going to be working and where the council assistants are going to be working, what level of privacy the council. So I'll ask again, where is the feedback? I know that, there's been lots of meetings and lots of input, and I'm glad it's been a collaborative effort, but I've never had any discussion with anybody on what do you think about this? Not even other than until we basically were showed, this is a chocolate cake, I hope you like chocolate. That's kind of how it was presented to us. So where was the feedback on the design of this floor? Because the biggest issue I have, if the boards and commissions, you want to have them meet there, that doesn't really matter to me. It just seems like if you're trying to make it work, that space could be used for other things, because we have places for boards and commissions to meet. But I really hate to have a silo by design, and I think that's my opinion is of where the mayor and the council officers are separated, and depending on the leadership style of mayors and council members, depends on the level of collaboration that you're going to have. But we're building a building to last into the future, 30, 40 years, and basically across from each other, completely separated, is I believe, building silos by design. And I think that, like I said, different leadership styles, different people have different ways of how they want to serve and how they think, the level of secrecy and silos that they like to operate under or not to operate under. But designing it this way basically continues the legacy of us being completely separated, where you really can't just go and talk to, the mayor can't come in and talk to us, and we can't go and talk to the mayor. And our staff wouldn't be able to interact really as much either, because of the design of this floor. So I would hope that there would be a willingness to take another look at this, because this isn't being built for who's here right now. That's my point. This is being built for who's going to be here in 10 years, who's going to be here in 20 years. And there's been, at least as far as myself, and I've talked to a couple other council members, no input sought from us on what this floor is even going to look like. So I ask again, where were the suggestion? You said the suggestion of the press room. Where were these suggestions for the garden level coming from?
Mayor, members of the
Mr.
council,
Phelps.
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Tomachoff. Again, that's what this workshop is for, we felt it would be important to put a general plan together based on all of the kind of collective input, but it's not a final decision. And so part of today will be to take input from council members and go back, and we'll pull the team back together again and reprocess that. It doesn't mean that everything that an individual council member says they want to do, but we'll try to get a collective direction. And so, for example, you mentioned kind of the connectivity to the mayor's office. So, that could be looked at it through design. Is there a way to make it feel more unified within the space? So that would be a note we'll take down and look at. But no, that's what this is designed for today. We still have, as we get into tonight, we're going to be asking for approval on the GMP2. We still have a lot of time that we can kind of, fine tune and zero in on things. So, that's what this workshop is for, is to provide input.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate. And the way we were on the fourth floor basically created a silo by design. I mean, literally, we were completely separated by quite a bit of distance and completely separate offices. So it's difficult not to have silos when you set people up to be work in a silo. So I would hope that we would at least be open to exploring setting something up that would offer at least, an opportunity for more to take down the silo, more collaboration. And then the last thing I want to say is, I'm almost certain that Goodyear is the newest city hall in the West Valley. It's a beautiful facility. I don't know if any of you had an opportunity to visit it. Very nice, very modern. And I'm aware that they don't have a gym and showers for their employees. And while I think that's a really nice perk, this is, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but this is a government building, this isn't Google. So I feel like that's a little bit indulgent. I don't know how the taxpayers are going to react to that. But like I said, I mean, we've got community centers. We're going to be building another community centers. We've got opportunities of places where our employees now are offered a discount to go and work out, but providing this, here in City Hall, I believe is a little bit indulgent, and I think it probably isn't going to be well received by the taxpayers. This is a government building. I appreciate wanting to have a modern, good workplace where we can attract good talent, but I just feel like that's a little bit over the top. Thank you.
Okay, any other council members have comments? Councilmember Aldama.
Thank you. So I loud and clear, the city manager said there's still an opportunity for design. However, our architects mentioned that we are 60% of the drawings, and we have a gross maximum price coming to the council tonight. So realistically, can you explain to us what is on the table for change that's outside of the 60%, unless you're going to go back and make changes, except changes that are in the 60%? So I know part of the 60% is the demo plan, but can you answer that question? How much really can be redesigned if the council asks you and your team to do that, if we're at 60%?
Mayor, members of the council, again, I think when you start talking about kind of design, it's then, where do we kind of do, what do we do with the interior space? And, what walls, can this wall be moved here? Can this wall be reconfigured? Can a room be shortened? Can it be lengthened? Can we redo cubicles in a different formation? So those are all things that are in the scope of things easier to do than the 60% is really how do we stack our mechanical? How do we stack our stairwells? How are we doing the cladding? Those kind of general things are where we're at with most of that 60% design. And then these are the, kind of the schematics that have been a result of kind of a lot of interaction both with staff, with the council, and the public have all kind of provided input.
So thank you for that. that really tells me that there's room for a lot of suggestions for change, number one. And then what I'm hearing from some of the council members is that this design wasn't an inclusive design, and an inclusive design that I'm aware of takes in consideration the culture, the personalities, the access to everyone. It also should include just the free flow of a building, and I don't see that in this design unless the culture of this organization is to silo departments off, then that's what the design follows. But I would have hoped, and I've said this time after time to the city manager, that this should have been a much more inclusive. I know we've met, and on the in the workshop agenda, you line out all the meetings that we've had, so I appreciate that. But I feel there could have been a lot more inclusivity of the council sitting down and saying, how do you really want this to be? I don't think, at least three of us don't accept or agree with where the council is, and I'm not, and I agree with Councilmember Tomachoff that the design should take in consideration those who are going to use the building after everyone in this room, and I'm not sure that it does that, but I was hoping for a more inclusive design. There's some challenges to that, by the way, but it could have been more inclusive, and I don't know what changes we can make, but I look forward to at least having that conversation.
Thank you. Councilmember Melnar.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Appreciate the presentation. I have been engaged, at least somewhat, that I feel like sufficient for me in the process of designing. It's my opinion that I am not a designer. I am not a layout person. I'm not an ergonomics person. And it's not my role to do all those things. Making suggestions on how I could make some changes, I think, is appropriate. I remember when I built my first house. I had my first house built. I didn't build it. And I went in and I talked to the contractor, and there were a couple of little minor things that I want to change. I said, can you take that wall out? I don't want that wall there at all. And he goes, yeah, we can do that. I want my counter to do this instead of do that. And I think those kind of things, Mr. Phelps has said, those are kind of things we can still change. But at the same time, you know, I think as council, it's not necessarily my role to be the person that dictates or that says, you know, I want ergonomically to look like this or look like that. I want it to be functional. And maybe for me, as much time as I spend in the council office, I think the design is perfect for the council. I don't need it to be a Taj Mahal. I don't need it to have the best view of the entire building. Some may like that, and out of respect for our position, that would have been okay, but it's not necessary. And I think part of the concern that we're having here about the way it was designed is maybe we feel a little slighted, but I don't. I feel like what we have done here is very ergonomic and very useful for the employee. I see that the building is very, very open, and I see it going to be very, very functional for staff. And who is here 40 hours a week plus? I'm not, but staff is. And I think that's who we need to build it to. And I believe that's the design that we've come up with. And yes, we could improve our council office. I think there are some minor improvements that we could probably make, and I would suggest that we do look at that. But I just feel like I'm not going to be the person that's going to look at this and say, oh, we need to move that to here and that to there, and that office is too big and this was too small. I don't think that's my role. I think that's your role. You know architecture, you know ergonomics, you know all those things much better than I do. So my opinion is I like the design. It's not perfect. Nothing ever is. But for me, it works. And I think it works for the employees. And for me, that's the most important.
for those who are here day in and day out, that it's going to be a beautiful place to work, a place they'll want to be. And I disagree about the fitness center. You know, the amount of money we spend on that and the amount of return we'll get on it by having employees have a place they can go work off a little stress in the middle of the day, I think it is well worth it. And businesses are doing it. Why are they doing it? Because it's beneficial to their bottom line. And it would be beneficial for the city of Glendale to have those amenities for our employees. So with that, I conclude my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Tomachoff.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to speak to that, and I hope that I did not come off as feeling slighted. But I do, the first time I actually saw anything like how the floors were going to be laid out was December 9th. That was the first time that I'd seen this kind of detail. Now, if other people were offered an opportunity to see and have input, I was not. So I don't know what was offered or afforded the ability to participate to other people besides myself, which is who I was speaking for. That was the first time I saw it. And when I asked, you know, where are you getting it was like, this is the feedback we're getting. And I said, who are you getting the feedback from? I myself was not asked what kind of layout I thought would be most functional for what we do. And the point I was trying to make was that you can create silos by design. I don't care if my office has a window. I really don't care. You could put my office in we had plenty of offices without windows before. I don't care about that. I don't care where my office is. I don't care if I have a window. I don't care about any of that. But I think that we should be consciously not creating a silo by the way we lay out the floor. And different regimes, or whatever you want to call them, are going to have different work styles and how much collaboration that they want to have between all the mayor and the council, the mayor and a couple of council members, collaboration between the mayor's staff and the council staff. But my opinion is that the way this is laid out doesn't encourage that. And I feel like we could do a better job to build something that if people prefer to work completely separately, that is an option, but that there's also by design more of an opportunity for more collaboration between not just the mayor and the council, but between the mayor's staff and the council staff. So I just think I see it as an opportunity to work more together, more cohesively for the entire floor. So that's just my opinion. I'm not complaining. I'm just stating the fact that my opinion is that this is just as much of a silo as existed before. And you can put my office in any corner without a window. I don't care. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Tomachoff. I guess I'll wrap this up since there's no direction to be had by saying this has been a very complicated project. This is a very complicated design to try to fit and create new office space within an existing building. I think you guys have done a remarkable job. It's like herding cats. I'm sure you heard some of these same comments from various members of departments. Nobody is going to be totally happy with this building when it's done, because you can't please all of the people all of the time. I think that's an old saying somewhere. I think you have done remarkably well with the project that you were given and the parameters that you were given. Everything may not be perfect, but like I won't even be here when the building opens. Everyone who is on council will probably not be here within the next 10 years. So trying to fit our perceptions is perhaps the wrong way to go, because you're building for the next 40 years, and you've got to reach some kind of common denominator for the council and the entire council. So I think you're doing the best you can. I think you've done a wonderful job. I can't wait. I wish you'd start tearing down everything tomorrow, quite frankly. I wish we'd done it a year ago, but I know that this is a painstakingly slow process, and that I do know that council has been given an opportunity through workshops and such to see the progress of the building and of design. And I know that I've offered comments that I've shared with you all about things that I would like to see differently. So there has been opportunity to do that. I know there has. So with that, I want to thank you for it.
Vice Mayor,
I think we're done for today.
I'd like to speak. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Councilmember Turner, please make it brief. Thank you.
Well, just for the record and the benefit of you, I agree that you've been working hard. I do feel, I agree with Councilmember Tomachoff and perhaps others that we have not had the kind of input we want. And again, I'm not looking for a building or office space or a park or an amphitheater for today. I'm looking for it down the road. Specifically, that's how I've come to this all along. And I don't want to saddle future councils with a dysfunctional office space, which is what I see this to be. It doesn't comport with our charter, and it just replicates downstairs the dysfunction we have upstairs. And I don't want to see that happen. Now, there may be others that are fine with it. May hear from them yet, but I'm not fine with it, and I want to see something different. And I won't continue to support this project if that doesn't happen. Now, it has been said that nobody will be happy, not everybody can be happy, you can't please everybody. But I think we can work to make people as happy, as satisfied as possible with what there is available. And that's what I'm asking for, and that's what I've heard a couple other council members ask for. You've done fine, we can do better. I may not be an ergonomics expert, but I'm also not a psychologist. But I can say for myself, it's not because I feel slighted. It's because I'm looking out for my community for the future. And this design doesn't support that. My vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Turner. Councilmember Yu.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. It's been difficult for me because I've been married so long, I don't get to make choices on almost anything to do with a building. It's a whole lot nicer than the city hall we have today. Like I said before, I had no idea our city hall was ugly until I saw what it could look like. I think it's gonna be wonderful. I'm curious. I'm not sure what everybody is upset about. As I look at the garden, where the council assistants, I'm not sure what the complaint is. I'd be glad to look at it and see how it lays out. Besides just a couple of photos, but I'm not sure what everybody's complaining about it. I'm excited. The amphitheater is very unique. I'm looking at photos here again, and I think it's wonderful. It looks open, friendly, a place people want to walk into and want to work. And I think the windows are such a plus. Our city hall is dark. I think this is going to be great. That's a great view right there. But I'm glad to take a look at, I'm not sure all the complaints what they're about, but take a look and try to get an understanding of it. But it's difficult for me. You show terracotta, the brick, what's going to be the best. Nobody's going to agree on everything, and I'm sure when this thing's done, it's going to be extremely nice. But I look forward to just moving on with this project and try to, meet with the council members what their complaint is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Yu. Mr. Phelps, what
Yes.
would be the next steps in the process?
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, thank you to the council for all the input. I know that the team is writing this stuff down, and every bit of your comments, I'd like to think we can figure out a way to accommodate a majority of those comments into plans. So let me kind of walk you through next steps. So assuming tonight that the council gives the approval for the long lead items and to start the demolition, one of the things the construction team will need to do, our development team will start making a decision on the brick. That's a long lead item. We expect to come back to the council with some recommended samples and colors in mid-January so that we can get that order placed before the end of January. So the next kind of decision in terms of picking out what your carpeting is going to be like or what your bath fixtures are looking like will come on the skin, because we need to get the masonry is a long lead item, and we want to make sure that doesn't hold up the development of the team of the project. Plus, we believe that if we can get the order in January, we can get it ahead of any potential price increases, because typically materials will go through a price increase at the first quarter of a calendar year. So that'll be the next step. Meanwhile, what we'll do is we'll come back with the design team and start looking at the options for kind of what could be available. And again, a lot of it's trying to, and I've learned this over the years, it sometimes is not as easy as moving a wall because maybe there's a plumbing issue, electrical issue, whatever. But we're going to take a run at it. We'll see what we can come up with, and then we will re-engage back with the council so that none of the designs. While we think it sounds like most of the focus has been on the way the garden level is kind of configured. What I can say is on the upper levels for the way the floors 1, 2, 3, and 4 work. There's a lot of work that went into that just to make sure that it fits and that there's good communication adjacency. So I think this has been really positive that we can now maybe drill down a little bit more focus. Councilmember Turner, you mentioned about, I think you said something about Goodyear, I think, or one of the council members did, or about the council chamber technology, excuse me. And one of the things I have asked the team to consider doing is maybe putting together a tour with the council, and let's go visit some of the council chambers in the area and look at their technology, and that may spur some good ideas as well. What I can say, our general budget for this wasn't a complete robust audiovisual package, but we know that we're probably going to have to come in and do more things with AV, and we'll figure out a way to fund, maybe that next level of enhancement. But that would be my recommendation, is that we go visit some of the council chambers and facilities in the area. There's a number of new city halls that have been built, so we'll work with your calendar and schedule in plenty of time to see if we can incorporate some of those ideas. So again, the next really check-in will happen very early in the first of the year, and that's when Diane and Mike and the Holly Street team will come back with some recommendations on the dimension of the product and some color samples and color palettes that we can kind of work in. So meanwhile, we'll continue to work on the other elements that have been raised here today.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. And we might as well just continue. Thank you for your presentation. Excuse me. And I want to thank all the presenters this afternoon for their presentations. And with that, I think we've finished our discussion with you.
I have a question, Vice Mayor.
Councilmember Turner.
Well, don't act like you're disgusted because I have a question. I have a right to ask questions.
I'm not acting disgusted.
Now,
that's your interpretation,
I'm asking,
sir.
does the team have, we didn't actually reach a consensus on whether we wanted to go with the terracotta or the brick. The city manager just said it's a decision that needs to be made. Do we need to reach a consensus on whether you want terracotta or brick?
Excuse me, Vice Mayor, Councilman Turner. Yeah, our staff's recommendation is to go with the brick.
I understand that's the staff recommendation, but apparently it's the council's decision. In workshop, we reached decisions through consensus, and I haven't heard the vice mayor ask us for our consensus. That's all.
Mr. Councilmember Turner, apparently there's been some miscommunication somewhere. When I read this item in the material that was presented to us, it was an update. I don't believe there was council consensus asked to move forward. I believe it was an update. Now, if there is a particular item that you would like to offer this council to consider for consensus, you may bring it forward.
And that's exactly what I did when he tried to cut me off. I brought forward the question, do they need us to have a formal consensus or informal consensus, as it might be, on brick versus terracotta? If you do, I would say that I would prefer the brick.
Okay. Councilmember Turner has asked for consensus on terracotta versus brick.
I think we're fine.
Is there consensus on a brick facade?
May I ask a question, Vice Mayor?
Yes, you may.
So I'm getting confused now. Isn't this one of the long lead items that you needed? So, okay, so they do need a consensus today. So it is one of the long lead items. So yes, I agree with the brick. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Aldama, brick. Councilmember Yu?
Brick.
Brick. So That answers your question, Councilmember Turner.
I think
believe
it's more
can-
their question than mine, but I'm satisfied we reached a
Consensus
consensus.
has been achieved. Again, thank you all for your presentations. I believe we will now move on to the city manager's report. Mr. Phelps.
Great. Thank you, Vice Mayor and members of the council. I've got just 2 items on my report. Both of them I would put in the, in the good news category. Recently, there is a publication, it's a national industry publication called Financial Times, and they released their annual list of best places for foreign businesses. Now, this is a national ranking of all the cities and communities. They identified their top 60 cities for foreign businesses in the country, and the city of Glendale came in at number 42 in that ranking of all cities in the country. They received the city of Glendale, we received a perfect score they have different criteria, and one of them is what they call the aftercare category, which measures the degree of administrative support cities offer companies once they locate in. As you know, oftentimes there's a lot of promises made, and then once the organization arrives, they get kind of the cold shoulder, and we received a perfect score. And this is coming then from people in the industry that says that even after they made their decision to come to Glendale, that the aftercare service they received from the city and their staff was exemplary. There are other areas that included kind of how welcoming the community is. We did very well there. The business environment ranked incredibly high. There's some things like accessibility, flight, but overall, we did incredibly well on this ranking, and I think it's a great reflection of a lot of the work that's being done, especially in the Loop 303 area. Then Glendale Glitters. I know most of you were able to attend the kickoff for the 30th anniversary of Glendale Glitters. And as you all know, we had to, because of the downtown campus redevelopment project, we had to shift the focus of the Glitters to the Civic Plaza area and areas in and around the Civic Plaza. And we use a company called Placer AI, which has technology tools to track attendance for events. And so it was reported out this morning, received a report that the attendance for the 2 days over the weekend for the first 2 days of Glendale Glitters came in at 23,500 visitors. We averaged almost 12,000 per day for both Friday and Saturday. And this represents an increase from prior numbers of almost 300% from the prior year. So just want to thank the council for helping kick off the celebration. As you know, the light's going to remain on through the month of December. There are additional events that were going to be taking place, including there's the Hometown Christmas Parade on December 9th. We have the December Live concert on December 16th. And there's other merchant-driven events that are also paralleling in. So we think we're off to a really good start for our downtown merchants. And again, the staff wants to thank all of you who were able to attend and kind of kick this thing off. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. City Attorney's report. Mr. Bailey.
Vice Mayor, no report. However, we do have an executive session scheduled. Thank you.
Thank you. We will then move on to council items of special interest. And each council member has an opportunity to indicate topics they would like to have discussed by the council at a future workshop. So we will begin with Councilmember Aldama.
Yes, I have two. The first one is I'd like to request that staff look into and return to us refining the sign ordinance for Glendale. The way it is now is you cannot have your phone number if you're a business owner on your signage. Makes no sense to me, but there could be a reason why. I'd like to ask staff to study that, and I believe this is the appropriate time since the UDC is coming back to us in December, and I'd like to meet with our staff on the sign ordinance, if I could, as my council member item of interest. The second one is one I've already made a request to the city manager and spoke to one of his staff members that he assigned to me, but I want to make sure that it's an item of interest so it continues. The Glendale Glitters went absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for the attendance numbers. and our staff did extremely well on the logistics of moving it from Murphy Park to Civic Center. I'm really proud of them. However, what was absent was the east side of Murphy Park. There was absolutely no lighting. And we knew that, and I wanted to see what the reaction was. And the reaction is that both business owners and many residents are asking that we look into lighting that section. And I know the city manager is going to look into that. I just want to make sure that those who are watching are aware that we're looking into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Aldama. Councilmember Yu. Thank you, Councilmember Yu. Councilmember Melnar.
Nothing tonight, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Melnar. Councilmember Tomachoff.
Nothing today.
Thank you, Councilmember Tomachoff. Councilmember Turner.
Nothing today.
Thank you, Councilmember Turner, and I have nothing. With that, can I have a motion to move into executive session?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Turner and seconded by Councilmember Tomachoff. This meeting is recessed as we move into executive session. Thank you.
You need a vote?